The sun was setting over Kanata, casting long shadows across the village streets. 7-year-old Naruto Uzumaki was walking aimlessly, his usual smile replaced with a glum expression as he strolled past the academy playground. The other kids often ignored or ridiculed him, so he kept his head low and stayed out of trouble, hoping no one would notice him. Today, however, he noticed someone else. A small group of boys had cornered a quiet, shy girl with lavender eyes and dark blue hair. Naruto recognized her as Hinata Hyuga, one of his classmates. She was different from the other girls, not loud or judgmental. In fact, she was always kind and sometimes even looked at Naruto with a soft, encouraging gaze when others would scoff. Right now, though, her eyes were filled with fear as the boys taunted her. "You're pathetic, Hyuga. Can't even throw a punch right," one of them sneered, stepping closer to her. Naruto's fists clenched as he watched, anger welling up inside him. He knew all too well what it felt like to be on the receiving end of bullying, and seeing it happen to someone like Hinata was unbearable. Without thinking, Naruto stormed over, shouting, "Hey! Leave her alone." The boys turned, sneering at Naruto with disdain. "Oh look, it's the village freak," one of them jeered. "Why don't you mind your own business, loser?" "I said, leave her alone," Naruto repeated, stepping in front of Hinata. His voice shook, but his gaze was unwavering. For once, he wasn't going to let them push him around or hurt someone he cared about. The boys weren't intimidated. One of them shoved Naruto, who stumbled but kept his footing. Another boy swung a fist towards him, and that was when something shifted. Naruto didn't understand what happened next. Time seemed to slow to a crawl, almost as if the world around him had frozen. His vision dimmed, and a strange energy surged through his body, fierce and unyielding. Then, in the blink of an eye, a towering figure appeared beside him, a golden apparition, shimmering with an otherworldly aura. It looked human, but its presence was far from ordinary. Its gaze was intense, and a feeling of immense power radiated from it, suffusing Naruto with a sensation he couldn't describe. The boys froze mid-punch, staring in horror at the golden figure. It moved faster than anything they had ever seen, delivering quick, powerful strikes that sent each boy flying backward with a force they couldn't comprehend. Naruto gasped, overwhelmed by the sight. What is this?" Hinata clutched onto his arm, equally frightened and bewildered. "And Naruto, what is that thing?" The golden figure stood motionless beside him, almost like a loyal guardian. Though Naruto had never seen it before, he felt a strange connection to it, a pull, as though they were linked in some unbreakable way. Is it protecting me?" he whispered, half to himself, his heart racing. The boys scrambled to their feet, terror-stricken. Monster! Naruto's got a monster with him," they shrieked, fleeing the scene, their taunts replaced with cries of fear. Once they were gone, the golden figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, dissolving into the air like mist. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating, as Naruto and Hinata stood there, their hearts pounding. "Naruto-kun, that was amazing," Hinata said softly, her voice trembling. "Why you saved me?" Naruto's gaze remained fixed on the spot where the figure had disappeared. He didn't fully understand what had just happened, but he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't alone anymore. Later that evening, Naruto sat on the rooftop of his apartment, gazing up at the stars, his thoughts swirling with confusion and curiosity. "What was that thing?" he murmured. "Why did it appear? And why did it feel like it was a part of me?" The golden figure had felt familiar, almost like an extension of himself, something he could control if he only knew how. He closed his eyes, trying to summon that strange energy again, but nothing happened. All he could feel was the faint echo of its power, as though it was lurking somewhere within him, waiting to be called upon. Just then, he heard a soft voice, almost like a whisper in his mind. "I am the world," it said, calm yet powerful. "Your will is mine to carry out. I exist to protect and serve you." Naruto's eyes shot open, his heart skipping a beat. "The world," he repeated, bewildered. What? What do you mean? There was no answer, only silence. But deep down, Naruto felt the truth of the words. This world was connected to him, tied to his emotions and his desire to protect. And as he thought back to the encounter with the bullies, he realized that the world had appeared because he had wanted it to, because he had needed to protect Hinata. A determined smile crept onto his face. If this power was truly his, then maybe, just maybe, he could use it to change things, to finally show everyone that he wasn't a nobody. Over the next few days, Naruto experimented with the world's abilities in secret, testing its limits and trying to understand its nature. The world was fast, strong, and precise, capable of stopping time for brief moments, allowing Naruto to move at impossible speeds and strike with a force that seemed almost supernatural. However, there was still much he didn't know. How long could he stop time for? Was there a limit to the world's strength? And perhaps most importantly, why did he, of all people, have this power? One day, while he was practicing in a secluded training ground, Hinata approached him, her face flushed as she looked down shyly. "And Naruto-kun, I wanted to thank you again for saving me," she said softly, twiddling her fingers. I was really scared, but you made me feel safe." Naruto grinned, scratching the back of his head. It was nothing. I just didn't want those jerks picking on you. No one should be treated like that." Hinata's gaze softened. "But that power you have, isn't it dangerous?" Naruto's expression grew serious as he looked at her. "Maybe. But I think it's also my chance to prove myself, to finally make people see me for who I am. I don't know everything about it yet, but I'm going to use it to protect the people I care about. Like you, Hinata." Hinata's cheeks flushed, and she looked away, her heart fluttering. I believe in you, Naruto-kun." Their bond grew stronger with each encounter, Hinata drawn to Naruto's determination and Naruto feeling a new sense of purpose with the world by his side. As time passed, Naruto became more confident in his abilities, learning to wield the world with increasing skill and precision. He was still careful to keep it a secret, but he knew that eventually, others would discover his power. For now, though, he was content to protect those he cared about from the shadows, letting his actions speak louder than any words. But he also knew that the world wasn't just a tool, it was a part of him, an extension of his spirit, and he was determined to uncover its true potential. With Hinata by his side, he felt stronger than ever, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The world, together, will show everyone what we're capable of. And so, Naruto's journey began, not as a lone outcast but as a boy with a guardian that would fight for him, protect him, and, perhaps, lead him to a destiny beyond anything he could imagine. Naruto's mornings had become a routine of sneaking away to train with the world. He would wake early, slitting out before anyone could spot him, heading to a secluded spot near the edge of the village. With each session, he learned more about the world's abilities and how to summon it. He soon noticed something curious: the world didn't always respond when he wanted it to. Sometimes, it took a moment of real desperation, a fierce emotion like anger or the instinct to protect, to bring it forth. And each time it appeared, the world around him seemed to slow. The birds would hover in the air, their wings frozen mid-flap, the leaves in the trees stopped swaying, and even the sounds of the village faded away, as if he were stepping into a place beyond reality. "Okay, let's try this again," he muttered, concentrating. He clenched his fists, trying to channel the feeling he had experienced when those bullies had threatened Hinata. Just as the memory resurfaced, he felt a familiar surge within him. In an instant, the world appeared, standing tall and watchful, golden eyes glinting with quiet power. This time, Naruto held onto it, maintaining its form as he observed everything around him slowing. A fallen leaf hovered midair, suspended in a moment that stretched for eternity. He took a step forward, noticing how his own movements seemed strangely heavy, as if he were wading through water. It was exhilarating, yet bewildering. As the world faded, reality returned, the leaf falling to the ground and the sounds of the forest rushing back in. Naruto's head spun slightly from the effort. Each time he practiced, he seemed to push himself a little further, but there was a limit to how long he could hold the world before exhaustion set in. Time? Slowing down? Is that part of its power? Naruto wondered aloud, feeling a thrill. If I can control that, I'll be unstoppable. But just as quickly, a thought sobered him: such a power wouldn't go unnoticed for long. If people discovered he could manipulate time, they might see him as a threat. His mind flickered to the villagers and how they already looked at him with suspicion. If they learned about the world. He sighed. For now, he had to keep this secret safe. Meanwhile, whispers of Naruto's recent encounter with the bullies had reached more than just the children in his class. A few parents had overheard the boys telling tales of a golden monster that protected Naruto, a story that quickly circulated through the village. Most dismissed it as a child's wild imagination, but the rumors eventually reached the ears of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen was no stranger to mysteries in Kanata. He knew that Naruto, as the host of the Nine Tails, would inevitably draw attention, but the recent rumors were strange, even for him. If the reports held any truth, and Naruto was somehow manifesting a power beyond his natural chakra, it could be dangerous. That evening, he summoned a pair of Anbu agents, their faces hidden behind animal masks. Monitor Naruto Uzumaki closely, he instructed. Don't interfere unless absolutely necessary, but report anything unusual. I want to understand exactly what's happening with the boy. The Anbu nodded and vanished from the room in an instant, blending into the shadows. Hiruzen sighed, gazing out the window at the village bathed in moonlight. He had always believed Naruto's path would be challenging, but something told him that the boy's destiny might be even more complex than he had anticipated. In the days that followed, Naruto's training continued in secret, though he remained unaware of the Anbu watching him from a distance. He focused on controlling his emotions, realizing that they were the key to summoning the world. When he felt anger, frustration, or a powerful urge to protect someone, the world manifested quickly. But if he was calm, it was more difficult, as though the golden figure responded to his deepest, most intense desires. One day, during his training, he attempted to push the world further. He wanted to see how much time he could control. Channeling all his focus, he summoned the world and tried to stretch the sensation, extending the slowed time. The world around him began to decelerate, each sound fading to a low hum as his surroundings shifted into near stillness. But after only a few seconds, he felt a sharp strain, as if his mind were stretching beyond its limits. His vision blurred, and the world flickered before vanishing, causing him to stumble forward, gasping for breath. Ugh, too much, he muttered, clutching his head as a dull ache settled in. He sagged to his knees, his chest heaving from the effort. So there's a limit. I can't hold it forever. But even as he recovered, Naruto couldn't help but feel a growing excitement. If he could control even a few seconds of time, imagine what he could do in a fight or to protect someone. As he straightened up, he heard a soft rustle nearby and froze. Turning, he saw nothing but trees and shadows, but something felt off. His instincts told him he wasn't alone. Is someone there? He called out, his voice wavering slightly. Silence greeted him, but he knew that something or someone was watching him. A chill ran down his spine, and he shivered, feeling an unseen presence observing him from afar. Maybe I'm just tired, he muttered, trying to shake off the feeling. But as he walked back to the village, he couldn't help glancing over his shoulder, uneasy. The Anbu, hidden in the trees, observed Naruto with silent curiosity. They had witnessed the world appear beside him, the golden figure shimmering with an aura that neither of them had ever seen before. They exchanged glances, each wondering what this strange power could mean for the boy in the village. Report this to the Hokage, one of them murmured, their tone filled with urgency. He needs to know what we've seen. In a flash, the second Anbu disappeared, heading straight for the Hokage's office. When Hiruzen heard the report, he sat in silence, pondering the implications. A power that could manipulate time, even briefly, was far beyond anything he had anticipated for Naruto. While he trusted Naruto's intentions, he couldn't ignore the potential risks this ability posed. Continue monitoring him, Hiruzen instructed the Anbu. But take care not to alarm him. We need to understand this power, not provoke it. The Anbu nodded, vanishing once more. Left alone in his office, Hiruzen stroked his beard thoughtfully. The world, the Anbu had called in a name Naruto himself had muttered aloud. It was an unusual title, yet it resonated with a certain gravitas, as if the power itself held an ancient, mysterious weight. Naruto's future had always been uncertain, but now it felt like the boy was standing at the edge of something immense, something that would either lead to greatness or, if left unchecked, unimaginable chaos. With a heavy heart, Hiruzen turned his gaze to the Hokage monument, his thoughts lingering on Naruto and the strange, golden guardian that seemed to follow him like a shadow. Be careful, Naruto, he whispered. The power you hold may be far more than even you can imagine. Naruto's life was beginning to change, slowly but surely, as he spent more time with Hinata. Their friendship had started as a quiet, shared understanding between two outcasts, but now it was blossoming into something deeper. Hinata was the only one who knew about the world, and she admired Naruto's courage and kindness, traits that seemed rare in a village that often saw him as a nuisance. For Naruto, having someone who believed in him was new. He'd always trained alone, pushed himself with no one to witness his progress or to cheer him on. But now, every day after academy classes, he and Hinata would meet at the training grounds hidden among the trees, far from prying eyes. Hinata's shyness would occasionally get the best of her, and her cheeks would redden whenever Naruto encouraged her. But Naruto found her presence reassuring. Despite her quiet nature, she had a strength that inspired him, and her willingness to stand by him gave him confidence to embrace the power of the world. One evening, as they finished a training session, Naruto caught Hinata glancing at him with that soft, admiring gaze he had come to know so well. Hey, Hinata, he asked, sitting cross-legged on the grass. Why yes, Naruto-kun, she replied, her hands clasped nervously. I wanted to thank you, he said, looking down, scratching the back of his head. For training with me and for believing in me. I never had anyone who did, not until now. Hinata's cheeks flushed pink, but she nodded, her voice gentle. Naruto-kun, I've always admired you. Why you are strong and brave, and no matter what people say, you don't give up. I wish I could be like that. Naruto's eyes widened, taken aback. Me? Brave? He laughed a little, though his heart warmed. I guess I never thought of it like that. But maybe, with the world, I can really protect people. Protect people like you. Hinata's smile was soft, but her gaze held a fierce determination. Then, I want to help you, Naruto-kun. I want to be strong too. They made a silent pact that night, a promise to support each other no matter what came their way. And together, they continued to train, Naruto honing his abilities with the world, and Hinata pushing herself to strengthen her own skills. As weeks passed, Naruto grew more adept at controlling the world. Through trial and error, he learned its limitations and strengths. He discovered that the world's punches were incredibly powerful, capable of shattering rocks and even cracking the earth. When he summoned it, he felt an overwhelming sense of strength flowing through him, like he could take on anything. But the true wonder of the world lay in its ability to stop time. It wasn't long, perhaps only a few seconds, but those precious moments could turn the tide of any situation. He experimented carefully, testing how long he could maintain the frozen world. With each attempt, he stretched it a bit further, reaching 4 or even 5 seconds before feeling the strain. During one session, he turned to Hinata, excitement shining in his eyes. Hinata, watch this. Naruto exclaimed, brimming with pride. He focused, summoning the world, and suddenly everything around him slowed to a halt. Hinata, frozen in mid-breath, looked like a porcelain doll, delicate and ethereal. The rustling leaves paused, and the breeze ceased as if the world itself held its breath. Naruto marveled at the power, feeling the flow of energy coursing through him. After what felt like an eternity, time resumed, and Hinata blinked in amazement. What happened? She asked, her voice awed. Naruto grinned, practically bouncing. Time. I can stop time. Just for a few seconds, but can you imagine how useful this will be? Hinata's eyes shone with admiration. Naruto-kun, that's incredible. But with every new skill came a cost. Every time he stretched his abilities, Naruto felt a mental strain. Prolonged use of the world would leave him exhausted, his head pounding and his vision blurred. Despite his progress, he had yet to master the power fully. Still, he pushed himself, determined to uncover every facet of his ability. The bond between Naruto and Hinata grew stronger with each day. Training together became a part of their lives, a daily ritual that gave them both a sense of purpose. As Hinata grew more confident in her own abilities, she began offering Naruto insights, observations she'd made about the world's movements and how Naruto's emotions affected it. Naruto-kun, she observed one afternoon as they practiced, I noticed that the world appears more solid when you are really determined. Almost like it responds to your spirit. Naruto paused, considering her words. He'd never thought of it that way, but she was right. When he felt focused, like when he had to protect someone, the world seemed to grow stronger. But if he was distracted or hesitant, its form would waver, as though sharing his uncertainty. You're amazing, Hinata, he said, grinning. You see things I wouldn't even think of. Hinata's cheeks flushed a delicate pink, and she smiled, her voice shy but warm. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I just want to help. Meanwhile, the third Hokage continued to monitor Naruto's progress from afar. The reports from the Umbu were increasingly unusual. They noted how Naruto seemed to summon a mysterious energy, a figure that could stop time itself. Hiruzen knew this power was both a blessing and a risk. Though he trusted Naruto's intentions, the power to manipulate time could easily become dangerous if not kept in check. One evening, as he gazed at the reports on his desk, Hiruzen made a decision. He would watch over Naruto and ensure the boy received guidance, but he wouldn't restrict him. If Naruto was meant to wield such power, he would have to learn its true purpose on his own. Yet there was something else in Hiruzen's heart, a sense of pride. Naruto was growing, not just in strength but in spirit. And the bond he was building with Hinata was proof that he was finding his place in the world. During one of their training sessions, Naruto decided to test the world's strength further, with Hinata by his side. He directed the world to strike a boulder, watching as the massive rock shattered under its punch. He marveled at the destructive power, feeling his surge of pride but also a hint of fear. He knew that this strength could be dangerous if he wasn't careful. Hinata, I'm starting to realize just how powerful the world really is, he said, his voice serious. I have to be careful with it. I don't want to hurt anyone I care about. Hinata nodded, her expression soft. You're right, Naruto-kun. But that's why I believe in you, because I know you'd never use that power to hurt innocent people. Naruto felt a warmth spreading in his chest at her words. She believed in him, trusted him completely, and that trust gave him strength. He resolved to use the world wisely, to honor the bond he was building with her. Thanks, Hinata. I'll keep getting stronger. And, if you're by my side, I know I can handle anything. They trained until dusk, their laughter echoing through the trees as they pushed each other to their limits, their friendship growing with each passing moment. The weeks turned into months, and Naruto's progress with the world became undeniable. His skill with time manipulation grew, allowing him to hold frozen moments for longer and longer, though he was careful never to push too hard. The power felt like second nature, an extension of his very soul. With Hinata's support, Naruto learned to see the world as a part of himself, a friend and a protector. He had also begun teaching Hinata some of his own techniques, helping her develop her confidence in combat. They sparred together, Naruto coaching her on precision and timing, while she helped him find balance and control. And with each day, Naruto's determination to protect the people he cared about deepened. He was no longer the lowly boy who longed for recognition. He had found something better. He had found a bond, a friendship that gave his power purpose. "Hinata," he said one evening as they watched the sunset together, "I'm glad I have you by my side. I used to think that power was all that mattered, but now, I know that what really matters is having someone who believes in you." Hinata smiled, her heart swelling with happiness. "And I'll always believe in you, Naruto-kun. No matter what." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its last golden rays over the village, Naruto felt a sense of peace. With the world and Hinata by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He was no longer alone. And for the first time, Naruto felt that he truly had a place in the world. Rumors of a mysterious boy with an unusual ability had begun to circulate among the less reputable circles of the shinobi world, reaching the ears of those who thrived in the shadows. None were more intrigued than Orochimaru, a rogue shinobi obsessed with forbidden knowledge and immortality. He'd always sought out rare abilities and bloodlines, considering them valuable stepping stones in his quest for power. Naruto's golden guardian power, or the world, as it was rumored to be called, piqued his curiosity beyond measure. "What a fascinating ability," Orochimaru mused, tapping his fingers thoughtfully against his armrest. "An entity that holds time itself, able to manifest and protect its user with raw, unbridled power. Such a force could be invaluable to my plans." Beside him, Kabuto listened, his analytical mind already calculating the possible uses and limitations of this mysterious ability. "Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto said smoothly, adjusting his glasses, "should we conduct a preliminary test? Sending one of our own agents to observe might give us a clearer picture of his skill level and his limitations." Orochimaru's lips curled into a thin smile. "Indeed, Kabuto. Send a scout, someone strong enough to push the boy but skilled enough to remain unnoticed. Let us see just how far Naruto Uzumaki's power truly goes." Naruto, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the growing interest in his abilities. Each day he trained harder with Hinata, pushing his control over the world and perfecting his timing. He could now hold the time stop effect for 6 seconds, just enough to dodge attacks or position himself strategically in combat. "Hinata," Naruto said one evening as they trained, "I think I'm finally getting the hang of it. The world is still a little unpredictable, but I can feel it getting stronger. I just have to focus and make sure my emotions are in check." Hinata nodded, watching him with admiration. "You've come so far, Naruto-kun. It's amazing to see how much you've grown." Her words filled him with pride, but he still felt a lingering doubt. He knew that, for all his progress, he hadn't truly tested the world against a real, dangerous opponent. The bullies and their taunts were nothing compared to the life-or-death encounters shinobi faced daily. That night, as Naruto returned home, he couldn't shake a strange feeling, a sense that someone was watching him. But he dismissed it, chalking it up to fatigue and his overactive imagination. The next day, Naruto was alone on a training field, practicing his techniques. His punches had become faster and more precise, and the world's strength was almost overwhelming. But as he paused to catch his breath, a faint rustling caught his attention. In an instant, his senses sharpened, every hair on his neck standing up. "You can come out," he called, trying to sound confident. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, lean shinobi with a scar across his cheek and a cold gleam in his eyes. The rogue shinobi's smirk was unsettling, his eyes fixed on Naruto with a mixture of curiosity and malice. "So you're the one with a strange power," the rogue said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Lord Orochimaru wants to know more about you, and I'm here to deliver." Naruto's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Orochimaru, a name he'd heard whispered in fear even among the adults in Kanata. But he steadied himself, calling forth the world instinctively. It materialized beside him, ready and watchful, as Naruto met the rogue's gaze. "I don't know what you want," Naruto said, his voice firm. "But if you think I'm just going to stand here and let you hurt me, you're dead wrong." The rogue smirked, drawing a kunai. "Show me what you've got, kid." Let's see if that power is worth Organa's interest. In a flash, the shinobi lunged forward, his kunai gleaming in the midday sun. Naruto reacted instinctively, summoning the world, which swung its fist toward the attacker. But the rogue was faster than Naruto anticipated, evading the blow with ease. Naruto gritted his teeth, trying to focus. He called upon the world's time-stop ability, and for a precious few seconds, everything around him stilled. He moved quickly, positioning himself to the rogue's side and striking with the world's powerful punch just as time resumed. The blow landed, and the rogue staggered, his smirk faltering. But rather than retreat, the shinobi grinned, wiping a trickle of blood from his lip. Impressive, he sneered, his eyes gleaming with a newfound intensity. But you'll have to do better than that, brat. With a speed that left Naruto breathless, the rogue launched a barrage of attacks, each strike faster and deadlier than the last. Naruto tried to keep up, summoning the world to block and counter, but his movements were growing sluggish. His control over the world wasn't as polished as he'd thought, and the rogue seemed to anticipate every move. Damn it! Naruto growled, narrowly avoiding a kicking at his chest. He activated the world's time-stop ability again, but this time, his energy wavered. He could only hold it for 3 seconds before the world flickered and vanished, leaving him vulnerable. In that brief lapse, the rogue closed in, landing a powerful blow that sent Naruto sprawling to the ground. Pain shot through his side, and he gasped, clutching his ribs. Not so tough without your little golden guardian, are you? The rogue taunted, circling him like a predator. Naruto struggled to stand, his vision blurring from the impact. He summoned the world once more, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. He couldn't keep this up for long, but he had no choice. If he didn't fight with everything he had, he might not make it out alive. As the rogue lunged again, Naruto's anger surged, fueling the world. The golden figure materialized with a fiercer presence, its eyes blazing as it swung its fist toward the rogue. This time, the punch connected with full force, sending the rogue flying backward, crashing into a nearby tree. Naruto breathed heavily, watching as the rogue struggled to his feet, his smug demeanor replaced by frustration. "You little brat," he hissed, wiping blood from his mouth. "I'll make you regret that." But before the rogue could launch another attack, a sudden shift in the air stopped him. He turned, sensing an unfamiliar presence nearby. From the shadows, 2 masked Umbu agents stepped forward, their eyes locked on the rogue. "That's enough," one of them said coldly, his voice laced with authority. "This fight is over." The rogue cursed under his breath, glancing between the Umbu and Naruto. Weighing his odds, he scowled and disappeared into the trees, leaving Naruto and the Umbu alone. Naruto staggered, relief flooding him as the Umbu approached. "Are you all right, Naruto?" one of them asked, his tone surprisingly gentle. Naruto nodded, though his body ached from the skirmish. "Why yeah, thanks for stepping in." The Umbu exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable behind their masks. "We've been instructed to keep an eye on you," one of them explained. "The Hokage is aware of your abilities and wants to ensure your safety?" Naruto frowned, surprised but somewhat relieved to know he wasn't entirely alone. "So, you're watching me?" The Umbu nodded. "Yes. And after today, we'll be keeping an even closer watch." As the Umbu disappeared, Naruto was left alone in a clearing, his body aching and his mind racing. The encounter had shown him just how much he still had to learn about controlling the world. If he was to protect himself and those he cared about, he needed to train harder, to push himself beyond his limits. The experience had humbled him, reminding him of the dangers lurking in a shinobi world. But it had also ignited a fierce determination within him. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for the friends who believed in him, for the bond he shared with Hinata, and for the hope that he could someday protect those who couldn't protect themselves. As he walked back to the village, Naruto's resolve strengthened. He would master the world, no matter what it took. And if Orochimaru or anyone else wanted to take him down, they would soon learn that he was not to be underestimated. The day had finally arrived. Naruto had been assigned to a team. It was the first true step toward becoming a shinobi, and despite everything he had faced, from bullies to rogue shinobi, he couldn't help but feel excited. He arrived early at the designated meeting spot, eager to meet his team, though he did worry about one thing: keeping the world hidden. He wasn't sure if he could control it entirely, but he knew that revealing his secret to others was too risky. The memory of the rogue shinobi's attack was still fresh in his mind, a reminder of how quickly dangerous attention could find him. Moments later, 2 other genin joined him: Sakura Haruno, who greeted him with a polite but somewhat hesitant nod, and Shizuke Uchiha, who barely glanced his way. Naruto braced himself, sensing the start of a rivalry with Shizuke already. Shizuke's quiet confidence and cool demeanor were hard to ignore. Naruto could tell that Shizuke was sizing him up, taking stock of him as a potential competitor. Before long, a man with spiky silver hair and a mask covering his face appeared, slouched against a nearby wall, reading a small book with a casual air. Naruto recognized him as Kakashi Hatake, one of Konoha's most skilled jonin. "Good morning, Teen 7, Kakashi greeted them, eyes crinkling with a smile. "I'll be your sensei." Naruto felt a twinge of excitement mixed with nerves as Kakashi continued, explaining that they'd be doing training exercises to assess their strengths and weaknesses. "To be a ninja isn't just about physical strength," Kakashi said, closing his book and looking at each of them in turn. "It's about teamwork, resilience, and quick thinking. The exercises we'll be doing will test all of these, so do your best to keep up." As they moved to the training grounds, Naruto focused on keeping the world contained. He couldn't risk anyone seeing it, especially not Shizuke or Kakashi, who both had sharp eyes for anything unusual. Still, he could feel the world's presence, lingering just beneath the surface, a loyal yet unpredictable force ready to protect him at any sign of threat. The training began with simple exercises, but Kakashi soon upped the difficulty, testing their reflexes and agility with rapid throws of kunai and shuriken. Naruto was on edge, each throw a challenge to avoid using the world's abilities by accident. He tried to rely on his own reflexes, his muscles straining as he dodged and blocked the attacks. Yet as the exercise grew more intense, Naruto's concentration wavered. At one point, a kunai came hurtling toward him, faster than he anticipated. Instinctively, he summoned the world for a split second, allowing it to stop time just long enough for him to sidestep the blade. He released his hold immediately, hoping no one noticed, but as he looked up, he saw Shizuke staring at him, a faint frown creasing his forehead. "Something's off about you, Naruto," Shizuke muttered later, after Kakashi had taken a break. His tone was challenging, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "One second you were standing there, and the next, you dodged like it was nothing." Naruto feigned ignorance, forcing a laugh. "Maybe I'm just faster than I look," he said, scratching the back of his head. Shizuke's gaze didn't waver, his eyes sharp and calculating. "You didn't move that fast before," he replied, clearly unconvinced. Naruto clenched his fists, determined not to let Shizuke rattle him. He knew that Shizuke's pride as an Uchiha likely wouldn't tolerate another genin having an advantage over him. Naruto tried to brush it off, keeping his focus on the exercise, but he could feel Shizuke's eyes on him, the suspicion lingering in the air. Kakashi then proposed their next challenge, a bell test. He held up 2 small bells and explained the rules. "Only 2 of you will get the bells. Whoever fails to grab one will be sent back to the academy." Naruto's heart sank, and he glanced at Sakura and Shizuke, who both seemed equally determined. The odds weren't in his favor, and he couldn't risk showing the world outright. He'd have to rely on his wits. As Kakashi signaled the start of the test, Shizuke immediately vanished into the trees, followed closely by Sakura. Naruto stayed behind, assessing Kakashi's movements. He knew that Kakashi's skill was far beyond anything he could counter on his own, but a small part of him felt reassured, knowing the world was ready if he needed it. Naruto sprinted forward, engaging Kakashi directly, determined to hold his ground. But Kakashi dodged effortlessly, evading Naruto's every attempt with minimal effort. It wasn't long before Kakashi pulled out his book, reading it mid-fight. "Are you even trying, Naruto?" Kakashi asked, his voice laced with amusement. Naruto clenched his teeth, frustration bubbling up within him. He threw another punch, which Kakashi blocked with one hand while flitting a page with the other. "Come on, Naruto," Kakashi taunted. "If you keep doing the same thing, I'll just keep dodging you. Think outside the box." Naruto knew he was at a disadvantage and that charging blindly wouldn't work. He tried to keep his emotions steady, aware that the world reacted strongest to his anger. Just as he was ready to regroup and try a different approach, Sasuke attacked from Kakashi's left, launching a series of rapid-fire kicks and punches. Kakashi dodged effortlessly, but Sasuke's presence was enough to momentarily shift Kakashi's focus from Naruto. Seeing his chance, Naruto sprang forward, aiming for the bells. But Kakashi anticipated him, sidestepping Naruto and grabbing his wrist in one smooth motion, flitting him to the ground with ease. "Too predictable," Kakashi said, shaking his head as he released Naruto. Fuming, Naruto scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was holding back because of the world. If he could only find a way to harness its power more subtly, without drawing attention. The test continued, with Kakashi outmaneuvering each of them effortlessly. As the minutes ticked by, frustration began to mount among the three genin. They hadn't come close to securing the bells, and Naruto's mind was racing with ideas, none of which seemed feasible without giving away his secret. Then, inspiration struck. He realized that he didn't have to rely solely on the world or his brute strength. He had something else, his determination and his knack for thinking creatively under pressure. Remembering how well he and Hinata had worked together during their training sessions, he decided to try something similar with Sakura. "Sakura," he whispered, catching her attention as she crouched nearby. "Let's try distracting him. If we attack together, we might have a chance to grab the bells." Sakura looked skeptical but nodded. They launched a coordinated assault, with Naruto drawing Kakashi's attention while Sakura circled around to go for the bells. As expected, Kakashi evaded Naruto, but Sakura's presence forced him to divide his focus. Naruto fought with all his might, pouring his energy into every strike and movement, inching closer to the bells. He could feel the world responding, lending him strength and precision without fully manifesting. In that split second, he reached for a bell and almost grazed it. But just as he thought victory was within his grasp, Kakashi pivoted and sidestepped, pulling both bells out of reach. "That was close," Kakashi admitted, a hint of genuine approval in his voice. "You worked together. That's progress." Naruto felt a surge of satisfaction. He hadn't won the bells, but he had learned a valuable lesson. With a bit of teamwork and strategy, he could achieve much more than he ever could alone. As the test ended, Kakashi gathered the three of them, his expression serious. "Today, none of you got the bells. But that's because you were focusing on them for yourselves. The real purpose of this exercise was to test your ability to work as a team. Being a shinobi means understanding each other's strengths and covering each other's weaknesses." Naruto felt a mix of relief and realization. Despite his strange power, he wasn't alone. He had teammates now, people he could depend on, and who could depend on him. Though Sasuke still regarded him with suspicion, Naruto sensed a mutual respect forming between them. Kakashi nodded approvingly. "You pass, Team 7. I'm looking forward to seeing what you are capable of in the future." As they parted ways for the day, Naruto walked back home with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. He was part of something bigger now, a team that he could learn and grow with. And as long as he worked to master the world in secret, he knew he would become stronger and more capable. He glanced up at the evening sky, a quiet determination settling over him. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, he was fighting for Team 7. For the first time, Naruto felt the weight of responsibility not as a burden, but as a promise. Naruto's excitement was palpable. It was his first real mission as a member of Team 7, and it was everything he had dreamed of. Sure, it was just a sea-rent mission to escort a bridge builder, Tajuna, to his village in the land of waves, but it was a mission that would take him out of the village and put his skills to the test. Naruto couldn't help but imagine how great it would be to prove his worth, not just to the villagers who had treated him like an outcast, but also to Sasuke, the cool Uchiha who always seemed to look down on him. "Alright, Team 7, listen up," Kakashi said as they gathered near the village gates. His voice was calm, but there was an air of seriousness about him. "Our mission is to escort Tashuna safely to the land of waves. We'll be facing some threats, so stay alert. It's a serious mission, but that doesn't mean it's a walk in the park. We'll encounter more danger than you think." Naruto was practically buzzing with energy. He nodded enthusiastically, ignoring the knot of nerves in his stomach. The chance to show what he could do in real combat, with the world by his side, was a tantalizing thought. He had never been more ready for anything in his life. As the team began their journey, the landscape around them gradually changed. The streets of Konoha were left behind, and as they moved toward the border of the land of waves, Naruto couldn't help but notice the stark contrast. The once bustling streets were now barren, with broken buildings, abandoned homes, and a general sense of poverty in the air. The further they went, the more apparent the struggles of the land of waves became. People here were poor, working hard just to make ends meet. Naruto's heart ached for them. He was no stranger to hardship, and seeing the pain and suffering of others fueled his desire to protect them. He couldn't ignore it. This mission wasn't just about escorting a bridge builder. It was about helping these people rebuild their lives. Kakashi, noticing Naruto's thoughtful expression, gave him a small, knowing look. "Don't let it distract you, Naruto. Our job is to get Tashuna to his destination safely. We can't let ourselves be swayed by emotions." Naruto snapped out of his thoughts and nodded. He had a mission to complete. And as long as he was on this team, he would make sure no one got hurt. He could feel the faint stirring of the world, his ever-present companion, just beneath the surface, ready to assist if danger found them. The journey took a sudden turn when the group reached a bridge spanning a large, turbulent river. The tension in the air was thick, and Kakashi, usually relaxed, suddenly stopped and motioned for the team to hold. "Stay alert," Kakashi warned quietly. "We're being watched." Before anyone could respond, the stillness of the moment was shattered by the sudden appearance of two figures emerging from the mist. The mercenaries known as the Demon Brothers had set an ambush, their deadly intent clear from their snarls and the glint of blades in their hands. Naruto's heart pounded as the two assassins moved in, circling the team. Instinctively, he reached for the familiar presence of the world, calling on its power to act before anyone else could react. Without thinking, time slowed. The world around him seemed to freeze as the Demon Brothers' kunai sailed through the air, but Naruto was already moving. His body reacted as though it had all the time in the world. He weaved in and out of their attacks, using the world to block the incoming projectiles with fluid, precise movements. The few seconds he had in stop time felt like an eternity, but Naruto used them to dodge, counter, and land in the perfect position to strike. He didn't just avoid the kunai. He disarmed one of the Demon Brothers with a swift kick to his weapon hand, sending the sharp blade flying. The other assailant charged forward, but Naruto was already there, landing a punch that sent the men crashing to the ground. Time resumed its natural flow, and the two mercenaries found themselves overwhelmed, with no clue what had just happened. "Who are you?" one of the Demon Brothers stammered, trying to scramble to his feet. Naruto stood tall, his heart racing but his mind calm, knowing he had narrowly avoided disaster. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage. You guys are in the wrong place at the wrong time." Sasuke, who had been watching the entire exchange with a mixture of surprise and suspicion, narrowed his eyes. His hand twitched toward a kunai pouch, clearly assessing whether he should step in. Sakura, on the other hand, looked both relieved and impressed, her eyes wide with surprise. "That was amazing, Naruto," Sakura said, her voice filled with admiration. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled as he examined Naruto's actions. He had let the ambush play out to test a team, but Naruto's speed and precision had been far beyond anything he expected. The boy had hidden potential, that was for sure. Sasuke, though, wasn't impressed in the way Sakura was. "You're hiding something, Naruto," he muttered, voice cold. "There's no way you're that fast without some trick up your sleeve." Naruto's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't let it show. He simply grinned, rubbing the back of his head. "What can I say? I've got talent." Kakashi stepped forward, drawing his blade and dispatching the last of the demon brothers with ease. Naruto's right. They were outmatched. "We'll move forward. Don't let your guard down, though. There's more danger ahead." Naruto's mind buzzed with the adrenaline of the encounter. He'd used the world again, but it still felt so new, so raw. He wasn't entirely in control, but he was getting there. The power was a part of him, a strange and unsettling force that responded to his every thought and emotion. For now, it had saved them, but he knew the battle was far from over. The rest of the journey was relatively uneventful, but as Team 7 entered the land of waves, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that they were being washed. Kakashi had noticed the same thing, and his demeanor shifted to one of quiet vigilance. The atmosphere was tense, and Naruto's instincts screamed that the worst was yet to come. Tashuna led them into a small village, its streets crowded with poor workers and villagers who gave the team wary glances. The bridge that Tashuna had been building was still unfinished, but the sense of urgency was palpable. The villagers were depending on this bridge to bring trade and security to the land. Naruto felt his resolve harden. This wasn't just about protecting Tashuna anymore. It was about helping the people who had so much at stake. In the evenings, after a long day of travel and preparation, Naruto and the others trained. It was difficult for him to keep the world under control, especially in such close quarters with his teammates. But he couldn't risk anyone noticing the power he wielded. He focused on building his reflexes, improving his physical strength, and maintaining his speed without relying too much on time manipulation. It wasn't easy, but he could feel himself growing stronger. While they trained, Sakura and Sasuke mostly kept to themselves, but Naruto found himself increasingly drawn to the idea of working with his team. There was something powerful about being with people who understood what it meant to fight for something greater than themselves. Sasuke was distant, as always, but even he seemed to respect Naruto's determination, though he didn't show it in words. Sakura was more open, offering encouragement and advice when they trained. It was inevitable. As the days passed, Naruto could feel the tension in the air growing thicker, like a storm waiting to break. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, a figure appeared on the bridge, the notorious rogue ninja, Zabuza Mamakai. The atmosphere shifted instantly, and Kakashi's expression hardened. Zabuza was no ordinary opponent. He was a former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, and his killing intent filled the air, a palpable, suffocating presence. Even Sasuke and Sakura could feel the weight of it. "Stay back," Kakashi ordered, stepping forward. "This is a fight I'll handle." But Naruto could feel the world urging him to stand his ground. His instincts screamed that he couldn't let Kakashi face this enemy alone. Zabuza's presence was overwhelming, but Naruto's determination was greater. Kakashi engaged Zabuza, his Sharingan activated as he quickly assessed the situation. But soon, things took a turn for the worse. Zabuza used his signature water prison jutsu, trapping Kakashi in a globe of water, rendering him unable to move or fight. The team froze, fear and uncertainty flooding them. Naruto's mind raced. He couldn't let Kakashi be defeated like this. He felt the pull of the world, and for the first time, he used it with intention, not just as a reaction, but as a strategy. The world froze again. Naruto moved, his body now in perfect harmony with the stand. He didn't hesitate, didn't question. He jumped into the stop time, assessing Zabuza's position. In those precious moments, he analyzed the clone standing near Kakashi and the water prison encasing him. With swift precision, Naruto used his time manipulation to position himself at Zabuza's side. He delivered a single, brutal punch to the clone, disrupting the jutsu and freeing Kakashi. Time resumed. The fight was far from over, but Naruto had proven one thing: he wasn't just a rookie. With the world, he was a force to be reckoned with. The battle with Zabuza and Hakuo left Team 7 battered but victorious. As they made their way back to the village, Sasuke remained uncharacteristically silent. He had seen Naruto in action during the fight against the Demon Brothers, but that had been a skirmish. This time, Naruto's power had been on full display. The speed, the precision, the way he moved, something wasn't right. Sasuke couldn't deny the fact that Naruto had saved him and Kakashi, but there was also something about Naruto's performance that felt off. Sasuke couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew there was more to Naruto than met the eye. His abilities went beyond mere skill. There was something supernatural about his reflexes, something that defied normal ninja limits. Sasuke had always prided himself on his own abilities, but seeing Naruto fight, seeing him move like that, ignited something deep inside him. Admiration? Maybe. But also envy. And that didn't sit well with him. That night, as the team rested near the village, Sasuke approached Naruto. He kept his voice low, his words carefully measured. "Hey, Naruto," Sasuke started, his tone flat but laced with suspicion. "How did you do that? The way you moved so fast, how did you get past Zabuza's clone so easily?" Naruto, sitting by the fire and staring into the flames, didn't immediately respond. He was tired, more tired than he had ever felt after a mission, but Sasuke's question cut through his thoughts. He turned his head slightly, meeting Sasuke's eyes, and for a moment, it felt like the world had slowed again. The world was watching, waiting for his signal. But Naruto forced himself to ignore it. "Not now. It's just instincts," Naruto replied, brushing it off with a casual wave of his hand. "I've been training hard, that's all." Sasuke wasn't convinced. He studied Naruto closely, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Instincts? Huh? I don't buy it. You were moving like a seasoned veteran. You didn't even seem to break a sweat while we were all struggling." Naruto let out a short laugh, his nerves a little frayed. "Maybe you're just not as fast as me, Sasuke. You should train harder." Sasuke's jaw clenched, but he said nothing more. He walked off, leaving Naruto alone by the fire. The tension between them simmered, unspoken but heavy in the air. There was something more to Naruto, something Sasuke wasn't sure he could ignore. And that knowledge gnawed at him, turning his small spark of rivalry into something far more complicated. The next day, as Team 7 continued their mission to escort Tashuna and protect the Land of Waves from Gato's criminal syndicate, a new threat arrived, one far more dangerous than any of them had anticipated. Zabuza, seemingly defeated, had returned, this time accompanied by a mysterious figure, Hakuo, a young boy with an icy, composed demeanor. Before they could react, Hakuo unleashed his power. With a sudden flick of his wrist, he created a series of sharp, crystal-clear mirrors that surrounded Team 7. The mirrors reflected his image, making it impossible to tell which was real and which were clones. It was a technique unlike anything the team had faced before. "Stay close," Kakashi ordered, drawing his kunai and preparing for battle. "Hakuo is a master of ice techniques. We need to stay mobile." Naruto didn't need any further instruction. His instincts kicked in, and his first reaction was to summon the world. The stand surged forward, and time briefly stopped as Naruto analyzed the situation. Haku's swift movements were hard to track, but with the world's ability to freeze time, Naruto had the edge. However, Haku's mirrors made the situation far more difficult than Naruto had anticipated. The mirrors reflected not just Haku's image but also the incoming needles and attacks, making it hard to find a way to avoid them all. Sasuke and Naruto were trapped inside the mirrors, Haku's needles zipping toward them with deadly speed. Naruto felt the pressure mounting, and his frustration grew. He could feel Sasuke beside him, trying to react but struggling to keep up. As Haku's attacks intensified, Naruto's desperation triggered something inside him, a burst of power from the world. Time stopped. Naruto moved with precision. With each passing second of frozen time, He positioned himself to intercept every needle, blocking the attacks with expert precision. But it wasn't just defense. He moved, slipped into the spaces between the mirrors, closing in on Haku's true form. Haku was stunned. He could sense something was wrong, but it wasn't until Naruto's punch shattered one of the mirrors that he realized what was happening. The world wasn't just blocking his attacks, it was moving faster than he could react. Just as Haku prepared to strike with a decisive blow, time stopped again. Naruto moved quickly, positioning himself in front of Sasuke and landing a crushing blow on Haku. The world resumed, and Sasuke, who had been caught off guard, could only stare in confusion at Naruto's sudden maneuver. What just happened? Sasuke muttered, baffled by the turn of events. He couldn't figure out how Naruto had gotten to Haku's so quickly. Haku, now on the defensive, narrowed his eyes. I don't understand. You can't just move like that. Are you using some kind of forbidden technique? Naruto didn't respond. Instead, he took a fighting stance, his body ready to unleash more power. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep using the world like this, but he knew that if they didn't defeat Haku soon, they'd all be in danger. The battle raged on, and as the minutes passed, the pressure only mounted. Haku's ice mirrors grew sharper and more numerous, and despite their best efforts, Team 7 found themselves pushed to their limits. Sasuke, unwilling to back down, found himself in the line of fire, and in a desperate move, he jumped in front of a volley of needles meant for Naruto. The needles pierced his body, and Sasuke fell to the ground, his blood staining the ice beneath him. Sasuke! Naruto yelled, panic filling his chest as he rushed to his teammate's side. Sasuke coughed, blood staining his lips as he weakly raised his hand. Don't worry about me, Naruto. Just fight. But Naruto couldn't just let Sasuke die. Not after everything they had been through. Not after everything he had promised to protect. A dark rage began to stir within him, the power of the world responding to his emotions. For the first time, he truly embraced the stand's full power. Time stopped. And in that frozen moment, Naruto's rage took control. The power surged through him, amplifying his every action, his every thought. He attacked without restraint, breaking mirrors, shattering ice, and moving faster than Haku could react. Each strike from Naruto felt like a hammer, each blow a declaration of his fury. Haku, overwhelmed, tried to keep up, but it was no use. Naruto was too fast, too powerful, and too determined. When time resumed, Haku was on the ground, broken and defeated. Part 8, Zabuza's Redemption and Teens Bonding. With Haku's defeat, Zabuza, who had been watching from the sidelines, was moved by the loyalty Haku had shown him. The bond they shared, one forged in blood and sacrifice, caused Zabuza to question his own path. Seeing Naruto's strength, his compassion, and his resolve to protect those he cared about, Zabuza made a decision that would change everything. Turning on Gato, the man who had betrayed him and Haku, Zabuza fought back, ultimately defeating the corrupt businessman and his minions. The mission was a success, but it came at a cost. Team 7 had faced the harsh reality of war, of betrayal, and of the weight that came with being a ninja. As the team returned to Konoha, Naruto couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened during their mission. He had grown stronger, learned more about his powers, and gained the respect of his teammates. But there was one person who had always believed in him, Hinata. Late one evening, after the mission had ended and Team 7 had returned to their quarters, Naruto found himself standing by a window, looking out over the village. His mind was full of thoughts about the world and what it meant for his future. He wasn't sure how long he stood there before he heard a soft voice. Naruto, you were amazing out there, Hinata said quietly, her voice filled with admiration. Naruto turned, surprised to see her there. She had always been there for him, in the background, offering encouragement and support. But hearing her praise him like that, it felt different this time. It wasn't just about the mission. It was about him, about who he was becoming. Thanks, Hinata, Naruto said, his voice softer than usual. He realized just how much her support meant to him. Himeda smiled shyly, her cheeks turning pink. I believe in you, Naruto. I know you'll become even stronger. Naruto's heart swelled with gratitude. I'll protect this village, Himeda. I promise. The days following the Land of Waves mission were filled with a sense of quiet but undeniable change for Naruto. He had learned so much from the battle with Zabuza, Haku, and the challenges he faced while protecting Tashuna. His abilities had grown, and while his comrades remained unaware of the true extent of his power, Naruto felt the weight of the world within him every moment of every day. Yet, there was something more, something deeper about the world that Naruto had yet to fully grasp. He had witnessed the Stand's abilities during moments of heightened emotion when he was desperate or angry, when Sasuke had been injured, or when his teammates were in danger. But there was one power, one potential, that had only begun to emerge, and Naruto could feel it stirring beneath the surface, the power to stop time. It wasn't something he could consciously control at first. The first few instances were mere accidents, fleeting seconds when the world around him seemed to freeze without any effort on his part. But it was enough for him to recognize what was happening. One morning, as Naruto was practicing in the woods near the village, he found himself in a situation where the world seemed to respond to his thoughts. A robed ninja had attempted to attack him from behind, a quick slash of a kunai aimed at his neck. Instinctively, he raised his arm to block, but the kunai never reached him. Everything around him froze, and eerie silence blanketed the world as time itself came to a standstill. Naruto's heart raced. This was it, the moment he had been searching for. Time stopped completely. He had done it. He moved through the frozen world, examining his surroundings with awe. The birds in mid-flight, the rustling leaves, even the wind itself, all suspended in a moment of stasis. He approached the robed ninja, who was now a mere statue in the air, his blade frozen inches from Naruto's skin. It felt as if he could do anything, alter the course of events, strike at will, or escape with no consequence. With trembling hands, Naruto began experimenting, manipulating the flow of time. He moved to different positions, dodged a barrage of shuriken that had been thrown at him earlier, and even practiced defensive techniques. When time resumed, he was back in the same spot, but nothing had touched him. The ninja stood frozen in place, confused by the sudden lack of any impact. For the next few days, Naruto honed his skill in secret. He tested the limits of his ability to stop time, discovering that the longer he held it, the more taxing it became. At first, it was only for a few seconds. Then, he learned to hold it for longer periods, long enough to reposition himself during battle, or to avoid an opponent's attacks entirely. The world, to Naruto, had become a stage on which he could act without fear of retaliation. But with this immense power came the realization that there were consequences. His energy would drain the longer he used the world, and the strain left him breathless after each trial. Still, he was addicted to it, the control, the mastery. He marveled at how time itself could be bent to his will. One afternoon, as Team 7 gathered in the training field, Naruto was eager to test his newfound skill. Sasuke, ever the competitive spirit, had challenged him to a sparring match. The rivalry between them had been growing ever since Naruto's unexpected display of power in the Land of Waves. Sasuke didn't understand it, but he could feel the gap between them widening. Naruto's speed, his strength, and his skill seemed to grow with every passing day. He couldn't help but wonder if Naruto was hiding something, a technique, a secret move that had given him an edge. Naruto, oblivious to Sasuke's growing jealousy, was excited. He was eager to see how his training with the world would affect his sparring. He wasn't sure how Sasuke would react to his increased abilities, but part of him was itching to test his limits. Part of him wanted to show Sasuke that he was no longer the same naive, reckless kid who had first joined the team. The match began, and immediately, Sasuke was on the offensive. He dashed forward with lightning speed, throwing a barrage of kunai and shuriken at Naruto, trying to overwhelm him with sheer numbers. Naruto, with the world by his side, was more than ready. He dodged effortlessly, his movements graceful and fluid, but there was a problem. Sasuke's attack was relentless. He was faster than Naruto anticipated. In the heat of the moment, Naruto panicked. He hadn't intended to use the world, but as the projectiles came flying at him, everything seemed to freeze. The world around him came to a halt, and for a moment, Naruto was suspended in a void. His breath was shallow as he processed what had just happened. He hadn't planned on stopping time, he had just been trying to dodge. But it had happened again, just like before. The sensation of being outside of time was strange and exhilarating. He glanced at Sasuke's frozen figure, his body mid-strike, his eyes wide with concentration. Naruto stood still, realizing how easily he could take advantage of the situation. He repositioned himself, dodging the kunai with ease and placing himself behind Sasuke in an instant. As the seconds passed, time resumed. Sasuke blinked, his eyes widening as he saw Naruto standing behind him, grinning. He had no idea how Naruto had moved so fast. He had been thrown off by the sudden shift, but he quickly recovered. Damn it! Sasuke growled, frustrated by his failure. He turned to face Naruto, narrowing his eyes. How did you do that? Naruto's grin faltered for a second, but he recovered quickly. What do you mean? I just dodged your attack. Sasuke's gaze was piercing. Don't lie, Naruto. You're faster than you were last week. And that wasn't normal. You stopped time, didn't you? Naruto's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't meant to let that slip, he hadn't meant to reveal anything about the world just yet. But the suspicion in Sasuke's voice made him feel uneasy. He had always prided himself on his ability to hide his true strength, but Sasuke's sharp eyes were starting to see through his facade. I don't know what you're talking about, Sasuke, Naruto replied, his voice too casual to be convincing. It's just training. You should try harder. Sasuke didn't buy it. His frustration boiled over, but he held his tongue, his eyes narrowed with growing suspicion. I'll be watching you, Naruto. Don't think you can hide anything from me. Naruto's smile faltered, and he quickly turned away. He didn't want to admit it, but Sasuke's words stung. The rivalry between them had deepened, and now, Sasuke was more determined than ever to uncover Naruto's secret. And Naruto could sense the coldness in Sasuke's gaze, the jealousy that was now beginning to poison their friendship. That evening, Naruto retreated to his usual training spot, the secluded area in the forest where he had first discovered the world's true potential. He needed to clear his head. Sasuke's suspicion had thrown him off. He couldn't risk Sasuke discovering the truth. The world was his alone. It was his greatest advantage, the one thing that gave him power beyond anyone else. If Sasuke found out, everything would change. The rivalry between them could turn into something far more dangerous. It was a thought that both excited and terrified him. As he stood in a clearing, the cool evening breeze ruffling his hair, Naruto focused his thoughts on the task at hand. He needed to refine his control over time. He couldn't afford to make another mistake. He needed to master the world completely. Time stopped. The world around him froze again, but this time, Naruto didn't panic. He was in control now, or at least he hoped he was. He moved slowly through the frozen world, practicing his footwork, his strikes, and his maneuvers. The longer he held time still, the more confident he became. It wasn't enough to merely stop time and move, he had to learn how to use it strategically, how to stop it at the right moment, and how to stop only for as long as he needed. His breathing slowed, and with each moment of stasis, he grew more comfortable with the world. He knew this power was something special, but he also knew he had to keep it hidden for now. When he finally released a time stop, the world resumed its normal pace, and Naruto stood still, panting slightly from the exertion. His training was far from over, but for the first time, he felt like he was starting to master the ability. Yet, even as he trained, a question lingered in his mind: how much longer could he keep this secret from Sasuke? The rivalry between them had only just begun, and Naruto knew that it would only intensify from here. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: he couldn't afford to be caught off guard again. The days following the recent sparring match with Sasuke were filled with a sense of unease for Naruto. He had been careful to keep his secret about the world hidden, but Sasuke's growing suspicion made it harder for him to stay in control. He had always been able to protect his secrets with ease, but the fear of being exposed weighed heavily on him now. He needed someone to talk to, someone who could understand without judgment. It wasn't long before the opportunity to confide in someone arose. Hinata had always been there for him, even if in the quietest, most subtle way possible. Her unwavering support had never faltered, even when Naruto was at his lowest. She was a constant presence in his life, a calm anchor amid the chaos. And it was with her that Naruto felt the courage to reveal the truth. One evening, after a long day of training, Naruto found himself sitting beside Hinata under the shade of a large tree. The two had been spending more time together, and the bond between them had grown stronger as they shared their thoughts, feelings, and fears. Hinata, ever observant, had noticed the subtle shifts in Naruto's behavior. He wasn't the same as he had been in the past. There was something different about him, something that set him apart. Hinata, Naruto began, his voice low and hesitant. There's something I need to tell you. Something I haven't told anyone else. He glanced at her, seeing the concern in her eyes. Hinata met his gaze with her usual quiet understanding, her gaze soft but determined. What is it, Naruto? You can tell me anything. Naruto hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to explain it. He had never really talked about the world to anyone before. Not even Jiraiya, not even Kakashi. But he knew that if there was one person who might understand, it was Hinata. I'm not like everyone else, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I've got this power. A power I can control sometimes. It's called the world. It lets me stop time. Freeze everything around me. I can move while the world is still, and I can make things happen while time is stopped. He took a deep breath, letting the words settle between them. But it's dangerous, and it's starting to feel like I don't know how far I can take it. I could hurt someone if I'm not careful. Hinata's eyes widened in surprise, but instead of fear or judgment, there was only concern. She reached out and placed a gentle hand on his arm, offering him the kind of support he hadn't expected. You don't have to be alone with this, Naruto, she said softly. I'll help you. You can trust me. We'll figure this out together. Naruto blinked, feeling a rush of warmth spread through his chest. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of relief, as if a weight had been lifted. Hinata's words were simple, but they meant more than anything to him. They were the reassurance he had needed, the reassurance that he wouldn't have to face the burden of the world alone. Thank you, Hinata, Naruto said, his voice full of sincerity. I don't know what I'd do without you. Hinata smiled, the gentle curve of her lips bringing a sense of calm to Naruto's turbulent thoughts. I'm always here for you, Naruto. You don't have to hide anything from me. From that moment on, their bond deepened. Hinata became his anchor, helping him understand the importance of responsibility when using the world. She reminded him that power, no matter how great, came with consequences. He couldn't let his abilities control him. He had to learn to control them. And with Hinata's quiet wisdom, Naruto slowly began to understand the true weight of the power he wielded. As the days passed, Naruto found himself growing closer to Hinata, finding comfort in their shared moments and quiet conversations. But even as their bond deepened, there were other, more dangerous forces at play. Whispers of the upcoming chunin exams had spread through the village, and with them came rumors of Naruto's unusual abilities. It was no secret that Naruto had grown stronger, faster, and more capable, but the nature of his power was still a mystery to most. The whispers only intensified after his display during the Land of Waves mission, and soon, the village began to buzz with speculation about what Naruto could really do. Little did Naruto know, one particular figure had taken an interest in his abilities, an interest that could change everything. Orochimaru, the rogue ninja, had been keeping an eye on Naruto for some time. Ever since the chunin exams were announced, He saw an opportunity to recruit Naruto for his own twisted purposes, or, if that failed, to eliminate him entirely. Naruto's powers were unique, dangerous, and potentially useful to someone with plans as far-reaching as Orochimaru's. He knew that if Naruto's abilities were left unchecked, they could become a significant threat to his own goals. Orochimaru's spies had already begun gathering information on Naruto, watching his every move. They reported back with details of his newfound strength, his mysterious speed, and his uncanny reflexes. But the most intriguing detail was the power to stop time, a power that Orochimaru believed could be harnessed, either to further his own ends or to be destroyed before it became a serious problem. With the chunin exams fast approaching, Orochimaru saw this as the perfect time to act. He planned to attend the exams himself, keeping his presence under the radar until the right moment. He would bide his time, observe Naruto's performance, and if the opportunity arose, make his move. Whether it was to manipulate Naruto or to wipe him off the map entirely, Orochimaru knew he had to make his decision soon. Meanwhile, Naruto remained blissfully unaware of the danger that loomed just beyond the horizon. He was focused on the upcoming exams, eager to prove himself and show everyone that he was capable of more than they expected. But as the day of the exams drew nearer, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that a storm was brewing on the horizon, and he was unknowingly at the center of it. One evening, as the sun set over Kanata, Naruto found himself once again in a training field with Hinata. They had been working together, practicing their techniques, and sharing their thoughts on the upcoming chunin exams. Hinata's presence was a calming influence on him, and he found himself opening up to her more than ever before. "You'll do great in the chunin exams, Naruto," Hinata said softly, her gaze full of quiet determination. "I believe in you." Naruto smiled, feeling the warmth of her words settle in his chest. He had always been determined to prove himself, but Hinata's belief in him gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't known he needed. "Thanks, Hinata," he said, his voice sincere. "I'll give it my all. I'm not just fighting for me anymore. I've got a lot of people to protect, people who believe in me. I won't let them down." Hinata nodded, her eyes shining with quiet pride. "You won't, Naruto. I know you won't." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Naruto and Hinata stood together, the weight of the chunin exams pressing down on them both. But for the first time in a long while, Naruto felt ready. With Hinata by his side, he felt he could face anything, even the threats that loomed just beyond the edge of his understanding. But deep in the shadows, Orochimaru's plan was already in motion, and Naruto's greatest challenge was still to come. The day of the chunin exams arrived, and Konoha was alive with excitement. For Naruto, this was more than just another mission or test, it was a chance to prove that he was more than a village's knucklehead. With his abilities growing stronger by the day, especially with the world, he knew that he could achieve something remarkable. But there was also pressure weighing on him. He was facing ninja who had honed their skills for years, far beyond his own experience, and that fear of failure nagged at him in the back of his mind. The streets of Konoha were bustling as Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura made their way to the chunin exam arena. The air felt heavy with anticipation, and despite his usual bravado, Naruto could feel the weight of the occasion. This was a test of everything he had learned, every ounce of power he had gained, and for once, he wasn't just fighting for himself. "We're gonna crush this, right, Naruto?" Sakura asked, her usual confidence back, though there was a slight tremor in her voice. She was excited, but also apprehensive about what lay ahead. "Of course. You know me, I never back down." Naruto responded with a grin, though his thoughts were more focused on the unknown challenges ahead. Sasuke remained silent beside them, his eyes narrowed, clearly lost in his thoughts. As they entered the arena, the sound of voices and the roar of the crowd echoed in their ears. The chunin exams had officially begun. The first phase of the exams was the written test, a challenge that made Naruto uneasy. He wasn't exactly known for his academic prowess, and the idea of taking a written test with difficult questions didn't fill him with confidence. As the test began, Naruto quickly realized that his typical approach, rushing through things with sheer determination, wasn't going to work here. The time limit was ticking down, and Naruto's thoughts raced. He glanced around, trying to figure out a way to get through this without failing. That's when it hit him: the world. He could use it to observe the other participants' answers, but he had to be careful. If he used the time stop too recklessly, it would be obvious. Naruto subtly activated the world, stopping time for a split second each time he needed a peek at his neighbor's paper. In those brief moments of frozen time, he memorized their answers, making sure he didn't linger too long. To the observers around him, Naruto appeared calm, focused his head down, scribbling away at the paper with a look of determination. No one suspected anything. When the time was up, Naruto handed in his test with a confident grin. He had passed, and to his surprise, he had done better than expected. He wasn't going to be the one to show off, but he felt a surge of pride as he glanced at Hinata, who sat quietly at the edge of the arena, watching him intently. Hinata caught his gaze and gave him a subtle smile, one that made Naruto's heart skip a beat. He wasn't sure if it was because of the exam or because of her support, but it filled him with something more than excitement. Maybe he could finally prove that he was more than just the prankster everyone took him for. The real challenge began as the preliminary rounds kicked off. The contestants who passed the first phase were now faced with one-on-one battles. The arena was charged with the energy of eager onlookers, all excited to see who would come out on top. Naruto's first match was against a ninja from the Hidden Sand, a scrappy young fighter with an aggressive style. As the bell rang to start the match, Naruto immediately felt the rush of adrenaline. His instincts kicked in, and the world reacted in kind, ready to be his silent ally. Naruto wasted no time. He knew that simply charging in would be a mistake, so he kept his distance at first, watching his opponent's every move. The world helped him read his opponent's actions even before they happened. By stopping time for a fraction of a second, Naruto was able to predict his enemies' attacks and create openings where they least expected them. Each move, each block, was perfectly timed. His opponent charged at him with a series of powerful strikes, but Naruto dodged effortlessly, anticipating each blow before it even landed. Every time the fighter attempted to land a hit, Naruto had already countered, twisting the momentum of the fight in his favor. The crowd began to murmur in astonishment as Naruto avoided every attack with such precision. It looked effortless, like he wasn't even trying. Eventually, Naruto decided to finish it. Using the time stop ability to prepare, he closed the distance and used his incredible speed to land a decisive strike. The Sand Ninja was knocked out cold, the crowd erupting into cheers. As the match ended, Naruto's chest swelled with pride. It wasn't just his strength, it was the world that had given him the ability to think beyond his opponent's next move. For a moment, the exhilaration was overwhelming. When the next match began, Naruto found himself watching intently. It was Kaiba Inuzuka's turn to fight. Naruto had always respected Kaiba. The boy's bond with his canine partner, Akamaru, was legendary in the village. But Naruto could already tell that Kaiba's brash, headstrong style wasn't going to work in the face of his newfound skills. Naruto vs. Kaiba. The fight started, and Kaiba immediately called out to Akamaru, who transformed into his giant dog form. Together, they charged toward Naruto with impressive speed. Akamaru's agility made him a tricky opponent, but Naruto's instincts powered by the world were sharper than ever. Naruto focused on Akamaru first, noting his movements with ease. The moment Kaiba launched his first attack, Naruto stopped time for a split second, reading the situation and calculating the best way to neutralize the duo. As time resumed, Naruto dodged Akamaru's attacks effortlessly, while predicting Kaiba's movements. He didn't have to outfight them with raw power, he just needed to outthink them. Kaiba's frustration grew as Naruto dodged and parried every attack with seemingly no effort. Kaiba was fast, but Naruto was faster. The crowd was starting to notice the difference in skill, and Naruto's ability to predict every move left Kaiba flailing. At one point, Kaiba made a reckless charge at Naruto, trying to catch him off guard, but Naruto stopped time at just the right moment, sidestepping and letting Kaiba's momentum carry him past. Gotcha! Naruto yelled, landing a quick punch to Kaiba's side and sending him sprawling. The match was over in an instant. Kaiba, though defeated, was impressed. "You're not bad, Naruto," he admitted, breathing heavily but with a grin. "Guess I underestimated you?" Naruto just grinned back. "You're not bad either. But I've still got more tricks up my sleeve." Sasuke's fight was up next, and Naruto couldn't help but watch, sensing the tension in the air. Sasuke had always been the prodigy of their group, the one who everyone believed was destined for greatness. But now, with Naruto's newfound strength and abilities, Sasuke's position was beginning to feel threatened. As the match began, Sasuke immediately took to his advanced tactics, using his Sharingan to predict his opponent's movements. He was fast, and his control over fire-style jutsu was impressive. But it wasn't enough. Naruto's abilities, honed over years of training with the world, had already surpassed the level Sasuke had reached on his own. Each time Sasuke made a move, his opponent countered with ease. His rival's strength had become so great that Sasuke began to struggle to land a blow. The pressure of being constantly overshadowed by Naruto seemed to wear on him, pushing him to act rashly. Naruto watched Sasuke's fight with a mixture of admiration and unease. Sasuke's inner turmoil was palpable. He was trying to push past his limits, but Naruto had already surpassed them. The rivalry between them, once friendly, was turning into something deeper. Sasuke's jealousy and Naruto's growing power were a volatile combination. Hinata had been watching Naruto intently, her heart swelling with pride as she saw him succeed. She had always believed in him, and with each victory, her faith in him grew stronger. But it wasn't just his victories that impressed her, it was the way he fought, the quiet confidence in his eyes, the way he carried himself after every win. Naruto was changing. And though he hadn't yet realized it, Hinata was slowly falling for him, not just as the loud, brash boy he used to be, but as the powerful, determined man he was becoming. With each glance in his direction, Hinata's heart beat faster, a silent promise forming in her mind. No matter where Naruto's path took him, she would be by his side, offering him the support he needed to keep moving forward. The ominous gates of the Forest of Death loomed in front of Team 7, each one of them feeling the weight of what lay ahead. The forest lived up to its name. Its dense trees and shadowed pathways were filled with deadly creatures and dangers lurking around every corner. It was a place where only the most skilled could survive, and with each step into the forest, the reality of the challenge settled in. Naruto could feel the tension in the air, and his instincts buzzed with awareness. He had the world, an immense power that allowed him to control time itself, but he knew that even that wouldn't guarantee their safety. This place was wild, unpredictable, and the other teams of ninja were just as dangerous. But Naruto wasn't about to let his teammates down. As they ventured deeper into the forest, his determination solidified. He would protect them, no matter the cost. "Sasuke, Sakura, stay alert," Naruto said, his voice steely. "We don't know what's out there." Sasuke gave him a brief glance but didn't say anything. His mind was too focused on the upcoming trials. Sakura, on the other hand, looked a bit nervous but nodded, determined not to show weakness. As always, Naruto led the charge, his eyes scanning the surrounding trees, waiting for any sign of movement. As they ventured further into the heart of the forest, the oppressive atmosphere seemed to press down on them, making every sound feel amplified. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and the silence was broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant animal calls. Barely an hour into their trek, Team 7's worst fears were realized. Another team of ninja had set their sights on them. The enemy squad was swift, ambushing them from the trees, targeting the scrolls Team 7 had been entrusted with. Naruto's senses flared. He immediately recognized the danger, but unlike the others who were caught off guard, he moved with practiced ease. As the enemy team surged forward, Naruto activated the world, stopping time in its tracks. In the frozen world around him, he moved without hesitation, swiftly incapacitating each of the attackers with precise, effortless blows. They never saw it coming. The first ninja, a burly boy from the hidden cloud, fell to the ground in an instant, his weapon still raised, as Naruto disarmed him and knocked him unconscious. The second, a kunoichi from the hidden mist, barely had time to blink before Naruto had already bound her hands and knocked her out with a swift punch. The third, a lanky ninja from the hidden stone, fared no better, caught in a moment the time stopped and knocked out by a roundhouse kick. Sasuke and Sakura, still stunned by the speed of the attack, watched as Naruto swiftly tied up the unconscious attackers. When time resumed, everything returned to normal, and the team of would-be attackers lay motionless on the ground. "What just happened?" Sakura asked, her voice filled with a mix of awe and confusion. "Naruto, how did you?" Naruto just grinned, scratching the back of his head. "I saw them coming. No big deal." Sasuke narrowed his eyes, his gaze flickering to Naruto. There was something off about how effortlessly Naruto handled the situation. Sasuke, who had always prided himself on his own skills, couldn't help but feel a twinge of frustration. He couldn't deny that Naruto's growth was staggering. "Nice job, Naruto," Sakura said, giving him a smile of appreciation. She was clearly relieved to be out of danger. But Naruto, sensing the underlying tension in Sasuke's silence, knew that the rivalry was far from over. As the team continued deeper into the forest, the dangers grew more pronounced. The air was thick with tension, and every rustle in the underbrush seemed to herald a new threat. But despite the constant risk, Naruto kept his focus on keeping the team safe. However, he noticed that Hinata was growing more anxious with every step they took. Hinata, always the more reserved and shy member of the team, was out of her comfort zone. The dense forest and the ever-present danger weighed heavily on her, and Naruto could see it. She wasn't used to the kind of pressure they were facing here. Despite her gentle nature, she was a capable ninja, but the intensity of the forest of death was unlike anything she had encountered before. As they walked, Naruto subtly moved closer to her, keeping an eye out for any signs of distress. He could feel the tension radiating from her, even though she was trying to keep it hidden. When a loud crash from the bushes startled everyone, Naruto quickly activated the world, freezing time just as an enemy ninja appeared, ready to strike. He swiftly moved to intercept the attacker, knocking him out in an instant. Hinata jumped slightly, her breath shallow. She glanced over at Naruto, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Naruto," she whispered, her cheeks tinged pink. Naruto smiled at her reassuringly. "No problem, Hinata. I've got your back." Hinata's heart fluttered at his words. She didn't need to ask why he protected her. It was the same reason he protected everyone. She couldn't help but feel touched by his silent care and began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he cared for her more than she had initially thought. But Hinata, ever self-conscious, didn't voice those feelings. Instead, she simply nodded, feeling his sense of warmth in her chest as they continued their journey. As they continued deeper into the forest, the atmosphere began to shift. The trees seemed darker, more foreboding, and a heavy presence filled the air. Naruto could feel that something was off. His instincts flared, and he subconsciously activated the world, preparing for whatever threat was coming. Without warning, a shadowed figure appeared before them, stepping from the shadows with an air of malevolence. His eyes were piercing, filled with a strange, otherworldly curiosity. Naruto's heart skipped a beat as he realized who it was. Orochimaru, the rogue ninja feared by all. Sasuke tensed, his eyes narrowing, recognizing the man who had haunted his past. Sakura's eyes widened with terror, and Hinata instinctively stepped closer to Naruto, sensing the danger. Orochimaru's smile was cold, calculating, as his eyes scanned the group. Well, if it isn't the famous Team 7. "And you, Naruto Uzumaki," he said, his voice smooth and eerily calm. "I've been watching you. You're quite the enigma, aren't you? That power, it's unlike anything I've ever sensed before." Naruto didn't flinch. He had faced danger before, but this man was different. The dark aura surrounding him made Naruto's blood run cold. Yet, the world gave him a strange sense of security, allowing him to remain calm even in the face of the overwhelming power that Orochimaru exuded. "What do you want?" Naruto demanded, his voice steady. He wasn't intimidated. Orochimaru's presence only solidified his resolve. "I'm here to offer you an opportunity, Naruto," Orochimaru said, his gaze narrowing with interest. "I see great potential in you. That power of yours. The world, it could be used to reshape this world, to bring about the change you desire. Join me. With my guidance, you can achieve everything you've ever dreamed of and more." Naruto's eyes hardened. He had no interest in Orochimaru's offer, no matter how tempting it sounded. He had come this far on his own, and the only person he needed was himself and those who cared for him. "I'm not interested," Naruto said firmly, his voice unwavering. "I've got my own way of doing things. I don't need your help." Orochimaru chuckled softly, as if amused by Naruto's response. "You have more resolve than I thought," he mused, his gaze flickering to the others. "But remember this, Naruto. There will come a time when the world will no longer be enough to protect you. What will you do then? How long will your resolve hold?" Naruto clenched his fists. "I'll protect those I care about, no matter what," he replied, his voice thick with determination. Orochimaru's smile widened. "We shall see," he said critically, before fading into the shadows. His presence lingered in the air long after he was gone, a reminder that this was only the beginning of something much darker. After the encounter with Orochimaru, Team 7 continued their journey through the forest, their resolve strengthened. Though the danger hadn't passed, Naruto felt more certain than ever that they could survive this. With the world at his side, he could protect and he wouldn't let anything happen to his team. Sasuke, still wrestling with his internal struggles, watched Naruto with a mixture of admiration and jealousy. Every step Naruto took seemed to be another leap ahead. But Sasuke couldn't ignore the growing respect he had for his teammate. Naruto's unwavering commitment to his friends, to protecting those he cared about, was something Sasuke had always struggled to understand, but now, in this moment, he couldn't deny it. Sakura, too, felt a sense of relief. Despite her initial concerns, she knew that with Naruto by their side, they would make it through this alive. And Hinata, always watching quietly, had started to believe in Naruto's strength and the possibility of a future where she could stand by his side. But for now, she would silently support him, as she always had. The calm before the storm was a fragile piece, but Naruto knew that the worst was yet to come. The forest of death had only just begun to show its true dangers. The chunin exams were nearing their end, and the tension in the air had only grown heavier as the battles progressed. The survival instinct within every ninja participating had reached its peak, and for many, this was the ultimate test of strength, will, and resolve. Among those competing, however, the most personal battle was about to unfold. Hinata's match against Neji Hyuga, a fellow member of the prestigious Hyuga clan, was up next. Naruto could feel the weight of the moment on his shoulders as he watched Hinata step into the arena. His heart raced with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Hinata was strong, but Neji was a prodigy. A true genius of the Hyuga clan, his skills in a gentle fist were near unparalleled. It was a battle that would test not only Hinata's abilities but her spirit. As the fight began, Neji wasted no time in attacking. His speed and precision were terrifying as he moved with fluid grace, striking at Hinata's chakra points with deadly accuracy. Hinata, determined but clearly outmatched, struggled to keep up with Neji's unrelenting assault. Her every move seemed like a step behind, and Naruto could see the frustration and pain in her eyes. It wasn't just her physical endurance that was being tested, it was her confidence. Hinata had always struggled with her own self-worth, constantly feeling as though she was lacking when compared to her more accomplished clan members. Neji's cruel words about her worthlessness were like daggers, and Naruto could see the cracks in her resolve begin to form. "You're weak, Hinata," Neji sneered, his words cutting deeper than any physical blow. "You're nothing compared to me. You'll never amount to anything. Your father was right to abandon you." Naruto's blood boiled. How dare he speak to Hinata like that? She was one of the kindest, most hard-working people he knew. She didn't deserve any of this. The pain in Hineda's eyes only fueled his fury, and for a moment, everything else in the arena faded. He only saw Niji's smug expression and the anguish on Hineda's face. A surge of power welled up inside him. The world responded to his emotions, its time-altering abilities flaring to life as Naruto felt an overwhelming desire to protect her. No one would hurt Hineda. Not on his watch. In that instant, time seemed to freeze, and the entire arena became still. The spectators, caught in a moment of suspended reality, had no idea what was happening. Niji, mid-strike, was paralyzed in a frozen moment, his fist inches from Hineda's face. The world stood still, every movement of his body halted by Naruto's will. Naruto took a step forward, his eyes locked on Niji, his fists clenched in anger. Time remained frozen, and with his enhanced speed, Naruto moved around the arena, positioning himself between Niji and Hineda. His presence alone was enough to rattle the air, sending a wave of tension throughout the stillness. For the briefest moment, Naruto stood there, silent, his gaze intense as he regarded Niji with disdain. The Hyuga prodigy was completely at his mercy, but Naruto had no intention of harming him, not physically. Instead, he leaned down, his voice cutting through the eerie silence. "Don't you dare speak to her like that." Naruto's voice was low but dripping with fury. His words felt like a thunderclap that resonated through the frozen moment. Hineda has more strength in her than you'll ever understand. She fights for others, not for some warped sense of superiority like you. You've never seen the kind of power that comes from the heart. Naruto wasn't just speaking to Niji. He was speaking to Hineda too, though she couldn't hear him in that frozen moment. She needed to hear it. She needed to know that she was strong, that she was worth something more than a weight of the expectations that had always been placed on her. The arena seemed to snap back into motion, the crowd gasping in confusion, but Niji, still standing there stunned for a moment, took a breath and regained his composure. The briefest hint of unease flickered in his eyes, but it was gone almost as quickly as it appeared. Still, he pressed on with his attacks, but something had shifted in Hineda. She had seen Naruto's intervention, felt his confidence in her, and the seeds of that faith began to take root in her heart. Niji's strikes began to falter. The resolve that had once wavered in Hineda was now firm, bolstered by Naruto's words and his unspoken support. Her chakra flared with newfound energy, and she fought back with everything she had, landing blows that were once unimaginable for her. The battle raged on, but now, it was clear, Hineda wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for those who believed in her, especially Naruto. The fight ended with Niji victorious, but Hineda's newfound strength was undeniable. She stood, battered and bruised, but with a quiet fire in her eyes. She had shown everyone, most importantly herself, that she was far from weak. After the chunin exams, Team 7 found themselves back in the village, the aftermath of the exams still fresh in their minds. Naruto had been determined to check in on Hineda, to make sure she was okay after the brutal battle. He found her training alone, as usual, in the quiet outskirts of the village. "Hineda!" Naruto called out, jogging over to where she was practicing her gentle fist strikes. She paused, turning to him with a shy smile. "And Naruto-kun," she stammered, her cheeks flushing. She had been expecting him, but she hadn't anticipated their conversation so soon after the exam. Naruto stopped a few feet away from her, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "You did great back there, Hineda. Even if you lost. I saw how much you've grown. You were amazing." Hineda lowered her gaze, feeling the warmth of his praise but unsure how to respond. I couldn't win, though," she said quietly. "Niji is just too strong. I'm not like him. I'm always weak." Naruto stepped closer, shaking his head. "You're not weak, Hineda. You just need to believe in yourself more. You have something no one else has, heart. That's something no amount of training or power can take away." Hineda looked up at him, her eyes brimming with emotion. I want to be strong, Naruto-kun. I want to protect the people I care about, just like you. Naruto smiled at her, his heart swelling with pride. Then let's do it together. We'll get stronger, both of us. We'll train, push each other, and become the best versions of ourselves. That's the promise I'm making to you. Hinata's heart skipped a beat. The sincerity in Naruto's eyes, the way he was speaking to her, it filled her with hope. For the first time, she felt like she truly had a place beside him, not as someone who was weak or inferior, but as an equal. Someone worthy of standing by his side. I'll do my best, Hinata whispered, a newfound determination in her voice. I won't let you down, Naruto-kun. Naruto's smile widened. I know you won't. We'll both get stronger, together. From that moment on, their bond deepened. Both Naruto and Hinata had always been outsiders in their own way, but now they found a shared purpose. They trained side by side, each day pushing themselves to their limits. Naruto helped Hinata unlock new levels of her chakra control and precision in her gentle fist technique, while Hinata inspired Naruto to refine his own skills and techniques, making him focus more on his growth beyond his raw power. They no longer trained alone, and through every challenge, every obstacle, their bond grew stronger. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as they stood side by side, there was no doubt in their hearts this was just the beginning of their shared journey to greatness. The atmosphere in the Hidden Leaf Village had shifted after the chunin exams. Sasuke's frustration had been building for months, steadily feeding off his growing envy of Naruto's mysterious power. For someone who had always prided himself on being the strongest in their group, Naruto's rapid rise had become an affront to everything Sasuke had worked for. What was more disturbing was how Naruto seemed to possess a power that no one understood, an overwhelming force that could not only stop time but bend reality itself. Sasuke had never been able to shake the nagging feeling that Naruto was hiding something far beyond what he had seen on the battlefield. It was on a quiet evening, in the training grounds near the village outskirts, that Sasuke finally confronted Naruto. Naruto was practicing, his form fluid and sharp, moving with purpose and power, seemingly without effort. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the field, Sasuke emerged from the darkness, his eyes burning with determination. Naruto, Sasuke's voice was colder than usual, carrying an edge of accusation. There's something you're not telling me. What is this power you have? Naruto stopped mid-motion, sensing the intensity in Sasuke's tone. He turned to face him, his expression unreadable. I don't know what you mean, Naruto replied, his voice cautious but not defensive. He had always known this moment would come, the day when Sasuke would ask. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Cut the crap. I've seen it. In the chunin exams, in the forest of death. You're not just lucky. You're hiding something, and I want to know what it is. The weight of Sasuke's gaze bore into Naruto, but he didn't back down. He had always known that his bond with Sasuke was fragile, but now it felt as though it was unraveling completely. Sasuke wasn't asking out of concern or camaraderie anymore, he was demanding answers. Naruto sighed, the tension in the air thickening. He deserves to know, Naruto thought, though his heart clenched with hesitation. He couldn't keep this secret any longer, not with Sasuke looking at him like this. With a deep breath, Naruto spoke, the words heavy with a burden of truth. I have a guardian. A power that helps me. Sasuke's eyes flared with suspicion. A guardian? What the hell does that even mean? Naruto hesitated for a moment, his hand subconsciously resting on a space over his chest, where he could feel the world his guardian waiting. It's not something I can explain easily. It's a power beyond what any of us should have. But it's mine. And it's not going anywhere. The words hung in the air, and Sasuke's fists clenched at his sides. His mind reeled, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. The mysterious power that Naruto had exhibited, his ability to stop time, to be so far ahead of everyone else, it all made sense now. What kind of power are you talking about? Sasuke demanded, his voice now full of both anger and disbelief. "How are you so much stronger than me? Why do you get all of this?" Naruto's gaze softened, but there was a hard edge to his tone. "I didn't ask for this, Sasuke. I didn't want it. But it's here, and I've had to learn to live with it. It's not about being stronger than you. It's about surviving, protecting those who matter to me." But Sasuke wasn't listening anymore. His jealousy had erupted into a boiling rage. "You think I care about your excuses? You've always been ahead of me. You're always the one who gets the spotlight. Always the one who gets what he wants. It's not fair." The words stung, and Naruto's heart tightened as he heard the pain in Sasuke's voice, but it was nothing compared to the fury that Sasuke now radiated. In a flash, Sasuke lunged forward, his Sharingan blazing to life. "I'll make you regret keeping secrets from me," he spat, charging at Naruto with incredible speed. The anger in his eyes was too much for Naruto to ignore. But before Sasuke could make contact, the world reacted. Time froze. The world around him was silent. The wind had stopped moving. The leaves that had been rustling in the air stood still, frozen in time. Sasuke, caught mid-lunge, was locked in place, his expression one of pure fury and surprise. Naruto's heart was pounding in his chest. His mind raced. He hadn't meant for things to escalate like this, but the power of the world had taken over in a way he hadn't anticipated. He had never used its time-stop ability in such a personal confrontation before. For a brief moment, Naruto stood still, observing Sasuke. He had never seen his friend, his rival, like this before. There was so much pain behind Sasuke's anger. The ambition, the desire to surpass Naruto, the hatred that had festered for so long. Naruto could see it all. But he also knew something had to change. This was no longer just a battle for power. It was a battle for their friendship. As time resumed, Naruto pushed himself forward, stopping just short of Sasuke's frozen form. He stood in front of him, chest heaving with breath, and stared directly into Sasuke's eyes. "You think you're the only one who's suffered, Sasuke?" Naruto's voice cracked slightly, but he forced it to remain firm. "I've spent my entire life being alone. No one cared about me. No one thought I had a future. But I didn't let that break me. And neither should you." Sasuke's eyes widened, though the anger was still there, burning brightly behind them. "You don't get it," Sasuke gritted out, his fists tightening. "You've never had to feel weak. You've never had to crawl your way up from nothing. You were always the one who had the advantage." Naruto shook his head. "You're wrong, Sasuke. I had to fight for everything. I never had a family, a clan, or anyone who believed in me. But I've got people now. People I care about. People who believe in me. I don't need to be the strongest. I just need to be strong enough to protect them." A flicker of doubt crossed Sasuke's features. The raw honesty in Naruto's words, the sincerity that he had never seen before, struck a chord in him. But Sasuke was too proud to admit it. "I don't need your pity," Sasuke growled, stepping back. "I'll surpass you, Naruto. No matter what. And I'll make you regret ever thinking you could be stronger than me." Naruto's eyes hardened, the resolve in them as sharp as ever. "Then prove it, Sasuke. But you're not going to do it by letting your jealousy control you. You'll never be strong if you keep running from your own pain." The words hit Sasuke harder than he wanted to admit. He clenched his fists again, fighting the urge to lash out. But the damage had been done. The bond they had once shared had been shattered, and in its place was an impenetrable rift, one that neither of them knew how to repair. The days following the confrontation were tense. Sasuke withdrew further into himself, isolating himself from Naruto and the rest of the team. His rivalry with Naruto, which had always simmered beneath the surface, had now boiled over into something more dangerous. Sasuke's obsession with surpassing Naruto consumed him, pushing him further away from the people who cared about him. Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling of loss. Suzuki had always been his closest rival, his best friend, but now they were strangers locked in an endless struggle for dominance. His heart ached at the thought of what had been lost, but he refused to let it distract him from his mission. The gap between them had never been wider, and though they had once fought side by side, it seemed now that only one of them could emerge victorious. And Naruto would do whatever it took to make sure it wasn't him who lost Suzuki forever. Their rivalry had reached its breaking point. Orochimaru's invasion. The tranquility of the Hidden Leaf village was shattered by the distant sound of explosions, followed by the ground trembling beneath their feet. The sky darkened as the once peaceful village was thrust into chaos. Orochimaru, the robed shinobi who had long plotted to destroy the village and seize the power of the Hokage, had launched his long-awaited attack. Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument, his eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon. He could feel the tension in the air, the heavy presence of the enemy encroaching on the village. The first wave of the assault had already begun, an organized strike from Orochimaru's forces, comprised of sound ninja and robed shinobi. The walls of Konoha were under siege, and the cries of battle echoed throughout the streets. Beside Naruto stood Hinata, her Bikudan activated, scanning the area with precision. "They are everywhere," she murmured, her voice tight with concern. Naruto glanced over at her, his expression a mix of determination and quiet resolve. He knew what was at stake now, not just his life, but the lives of everyone in Konoha. The village, his home, was in danger, and he would do anything to protect it. "We're not letting them get away with this," Naruto declared, his voice resolute. Hinata nodded firmly, her fingers twitching toward her ninja tools. She was ready, but she knew this would be unlike anything they had ever faced before. Naruto placed his hand on her shoulder, giving her a reassuring smile. "Stay close. We'll get through this together." Just as Naruto was about to turn to leave, the ground quaked again. A dark presence, one that Naruto instantly recognized, swept through the village. Orochimaru had arrived. The eerie calmness of the surroundings turned to an ominous, almost suffocating atmosphere as the sound of sinister laughter echoed through the air. Orochimaru, with his serpentine body and dark, unsettling smile, appeared on the battlefield, surrounded by his followers. He had been waiting for this moment for years, the moment when he could finally take control of Konoha and rid himself of the village's power. And now, with the Hokage preoccupied by his own forces, the moment had arrived. Naruto's eyes locked onto Orochimaru's, his grip tightening on his kunai. He could sense the weight of the battle that was about to unfold. This wouldn't just be a fight for Konoha's survival, it would be a test of everything he had learned, everything he had become. And most importantly, it would be a test of the world. Ultimate test of power. The first wave of enemies had already begun attacking, but Naruto was focused on one thing: stopping Orochimaru from reaching the Hokage and his ultimate goal. Time seemed to slow as Orochimaru moved through the chaos, making his way toward the Hokage tower. His presence was unmistakable, and the thought of him gaining control over the village was something Naruto could not allow. As Orochimaru approached, Naruto's mind worked quickly. He could feel the power of the world at his fingertips, ready to be unleashed in all its terrifying glory. He had used its abilities in smaller skirmishes before, but this was different. The stakes had never been higher. Naruto focused all his energy into the stand. He felt it, the connection between him and the world, the unyielding power that pulsed within his very being. His eyes narrowed, and in a moment of clarity, he knew what he had to do. Stop time. A split second later, everything froze. Orochimaru, his snakes writhing around him, was suddenly suspended mid-step. The world had come to a halt. Every movement, every breath, was stilled in an eerie silence. The entire village, once filled with the sounds of battle and destruction, was now frozen in a moment of suspended animation. The only things moving were Naruto and Hinata, both of whom had been unaffected by the time stop. Naruto's heart raced as he surveyed the frozen scene. It was like the entire world had been paused, as if he were the only one left alive in this pocket of stillness. He moved toward Orochimaru, his footsteps silent against the frozen landscape. Time had no hold on him now. Hinata followed closely behind, her Bikudan still active, though she couldn't see any changes in the environment. "Naruto, are you sure about this?" she asked quietly, her eyes scanning the unmoving landscape. Naruto's expression was hard. "I'm not going to let him destroy this village," he said, his voice unwavering. With swift, calculated steps, Naruto approached Orochimaru, who was locked in place, his sinister grin frozen in mid-laughter. Naruto could feel the cold, oppressive aura of the villain, but with the world in his control, the tension in the air was nearly unbearable. Naruto extended his hand and focused on Orochimaru's body. A wave of energy radiated from his palm as he used the world to bind Orochimaru's movements even further, ensuring that the rogue ninja could do nothing while time was stopped. Suddenly, an idea sparked in Naruto's mind. He didn't need to just stop Orochimaru, he needed to disable him completely. He needed to ensure that when time resumed, Orochimaru would be vulnerable. Naruto focused on Orochimaru's body, his mind concentrating on the movements of his hands, his feet, and his snakes. He used the world to carefully manipulate the environment around them, creating traps and barriers that would hold Orochimaru in place when time resumed. He could feel the power of the stand coursing through him, making everything feel as if it were his to command. Hinata stood by, watching Naruto's actions in awe. She had seen glimpses of Naruto's power before, but now, seeing the full extent of it, she couldn't help but be amazed. This was no longer just about physical strength, it was about control over time itself. And Naruto was using it for the greater good. "Done," Naruto said after a few moments, stepping back. His mind was exhausted from concentrating so hard, but the traps he had set were perfect. If everything went as planned, Orochimaru would find himself unable to move or escape when time resumed. Naruto turned to Hinata, who was watching him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Stay close," he said, his tone serious. "We're about to end this." With a final breath, Naruto snapped his fingers, releasing the time stop. The resumption of time. The world surged back to life. Time resumed its relentless flow, and with it came the chaos of battle. Orochimaru's body jerked forward, trying to continue his assault, but he was immediately met with the traps that Naruto had set. Struggling to move, Orochimaru's serpentine body was tangled in a web of chakra-infused wires, the binds tightening with every failed attempt to escape. Naruto was already on the move, his kunai drawn as he charged toward Orochimaru. The surprise of his sudden immobilization sent a riddle through Orochimaru's mind, but before he could fully comprehend what had happened, Naruto was on him, delivering a flurry of well-placed strikes. Hinata followed, her Byakugan still active, and she kept watch for any more attackers. Her gentle yet determined gaze swept across the battlefield, ready to help wherever needed. Orochimaru hissed in frustration, his eyes flashing with malice. "You think you can stop me, brat?" he sneered, struggling against the restraints. "I'll destroy everything you care about." But Naruto only smirked, unfazed. "Not today, Orochimaru. You've underestimated me." As the battle unfolded, Naruto used his newfound mastery over the world to stay one step ahead of Orochimaru's every move. Time after time, he outmaneuvered the rogue ninja, using the time-stop ability to anticipate attacks, create openings, and overwhelm Orochimaru's forces. Finally, with a decisive blow, Naruto struck Orochimaru, sending him crashing into the ground, incapacitated. The enemy's plans had been thwarted. But Naruto knew this wasn't over. Orochimaru would retreat, regroup, and try again. The village would remain under threat for as long as he was alive. Still, for the moment, Naruto had won. He had protected Hinata, proven his power, and shown everyone including himself that he was a force to be reckoned with. And with Hinata by his side, the battle was far from over. Together, they would face whatever challenges came next, knowing that their bond was the one thing no one could take from them. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest as he stared down Orochimaru, his breath coming in short bursts as the adrenaline coursed through him. With the world now his tool of absolute control, he had never felt more alive, more powerful. But with that power came the weight of responsibility. Konoha was his home. His friends were here. And he would protect it all, no matter the cost. As the final remnants of the time stop faded, the chaotic battlefield erupted once again. The village was under siege from all sides, and Orochimaru's forces showed no signs of slowing. Sound ninjas and rogue warriors charged forward, their eyes filled with bloodlust, intent on destroying everything in their path. Naruto glanced to his side to see Hinata still close by, her Byakugan blazing, picking out every enemy from a mile away. His eyes met hers, and without words, they moved in perfect synchrony. Hinata launched herself forward, using her graceful, precise strikes to disable any who dared approach Naruto. Meanwhile, Naruto moved with unnerving speed, dodging enemy attacks with ease and landing devastating blows in return. Every movement was calculated, his every strike guided by the world's predictive abilities. Despite the overwhelming force they faced, Naruto's confidence grew with every passing second. He had never felt more in control, and the stand's power always seemed to multiply as the enemy poured in from every direction. The forces of Konoha were fighting back with everything they had, but Naruto could feel that something more was needed. The Hokage Tower was their primary objective. Orochimaru needed to be stopped before he could reach the heart of the village, where the leadership resided. If he succeeded, the consequences would be disastrous. Naruto's thoughts flashed back to the words of his friends, to the promises he had made, and to the vision of the future he wanted to create. He could never let Orochimaru tear that away. As if summoned by Naruto's thoughts, Orochimaru's eerie presence grew closer, the path ahead clouded by his dark chakra. The sound of his hissing laughter echoed through the battlefield, a taunting reminder of the threat he posed. Naruto could feel the tension building. This was the moment, the ultimate confrontation. With a single glance at Hinata, Naruto saw the resolve in her eyes. She knew what was at stake, and her silent support steadied his resolve. "This ends now, Orochimaru," Naruto shouted, his voice carrying across the battlefield. Orochimaru's eyes gleamed as he appeared from the shadows, his cold smile never faltering. He was flanked by a dozen of his elite sound ninjas, but they were nothing in comparison to what he was capable of. As the dark ninja slid his tongue over his lips, his voice echoed through the carnage. "You believe you can stop me, boy? The world is a powerful tool, but it won't save you. You are a mere child playing with forces beyond your comprehension." Naruto's jaw clenched, his grip tightening around the hilt of his kunai. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, his voice steady but laced with an intensity that shook the very ground beneath him. Orochimaru's amusement deepened, but he did not underestimate Naruto's power. He understood the potential of the world. However, he was not ready to admit defeat, not when his ultimate goal was so close at hand. "I'll be the judge of that," Orochimaru whispered, his voice turning to a hiss as he stepped forward, the air around him crackling with energy. Naruto's eyes flashed with determination. He knew he had to act fast. As Orochimaru made his move, Naruto held up his hand and focused every ounce of his chakra into the stand. The world around him slowed, and the unmistakable sensation of time freezing washed over him once more. Orochimaru froze in mid-step, his malicious smile still etched onto his face. The battle around them paused, and everything became still. Only Naruto and Hinata were unaffected, their movements as fluid and deliberate as ever. Naruto moved swiftly toward Orochimaru, each step deliberate, every movement executed with surgical precision. The world guided his actions, allowing him to predict Orochimaru's next moves even in a frozen moment. His eyes locked onto the sound ninjas who were still trapped in time, and he quickly neutralized them, sealing their movements and ensuring they could no longer interfere in the battle. With every passing second, Naruto's understanding of the world deepened. The stand was more than a tool, it was a reflection of his will, his determination to protect. He could feel the world resonating with him, a perfect harmony that allowed him to move through this frozen world as if it were his own domain. But his focus remained on Orochimaru. He couldn't allow the rogue ninja to break free of his restraints, not while the Hokage was vulnerable. With one swift motion, Naruto reached out and bound Orochimaru's movements. Chakra chains wrapped around the rogue ninja's limbs, locking him into place and ensuring he could not escape. Naruto could feel the resistance in Orochimaru's body, but it was futile. He had no room to move. Naruto stood in front of Orochimaru, his eyes hardening. "You've lost," he said, his voice unwavering. Orochimaru's eyes burned with fury, but his voice remained calm. "You think you've won? You may have stopped me for now, but you can never stop the bigger picture. This is just the beginning." Before Naruto could respond, he sensed something a shift in the atmosphere, a growing dark presence. Orochimaru's forces were regrouping. Time was running out. He had to act quickly. Naruto took a deep breath and released a time stop. As time resumed its flow, the world snapped back into motion. The roar of battle, the screams of pain and triumph, returned in full force. Orochimaru's restraints held him for a moment longer, but then, with a vicious roar, he broke free. His snakes writhed around him, reacting to his anger, but the bonds Naruto had placed on him were not so easily undone. However, Orochimaru was far from finished. His eyes gleamed with a cold determination as he summoned more of his cursed chakra. The ground beneath him trembled as a dark, oppressive aura enveloped him. Orochimaru's snakes coiled around him like protective barriers, ready to strike. But Naruto was faster. In an instant, he rushed forward, his hand shooting out to activate the world. The time stop was instantaneous, and once again, the world fell still. Naruto moved with purpose, his eyes locked onto Orochimaru's vulnerable form. In the stillness of frozen time, he delivered a brutal series of strikes, punches and kicks, chakra-infused blows that tore through Orochimaru's defenses. The rogue ninja's body crumbled beneath the force of Naruto's relentless assault. This time, Naruto did not hesitate. He knew that there could be no mercy here. Orochimaru was dangerous, and he would not rest until the rogue ninja was fully neutralized. With one final, crushing blow, Naruto sealed Orochimaru's movements once again, this time ensuring his complete immobilization. As he stood over the defeated rogue ninja, he breathed heavily, his mind racing with the knowledge that the fight was far from over. With Orochimaru's defeat, the battle around him began to calm. The forces of Konoha were gaining ground, their enemies retreating in the face of Naruto's overwhelming power. But the victory was bittersweet. Though Orochimaru had been stopped, the cost of the battle was yet to be fully realized. Naruto turned to Hinata, who was still fighting by his side, her face flushed with exertion. Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment, all the chaos around him seemed to fade away. They had fought together, and they had won. But even as the battle came to an end, Naruto knew this was only a small victory in a much larger war. The dark forces that sought to destroy Konoha were far from finished, and the enemies he had yet to face were only becoming stronger. As long as he had the world, however, he would not falter. His resolve was unshakable. He would protect Konoha. He would protect his friends. And he would do whatever it took to ensure the future he dreamed of. Together with Hinata, Sasuke, Sakura, and all of his allies, Naruto was ready for whatever came next. The aftermath of the invasion. The dust had barely settled from Orochimaru's invasion when Naruto stood on the outskirts of Konoha, the village still recovering from the destruction. The Hokage Tower loomed in a distance, and Naruto could hear the hushed voices of villagers, some fearful, some grateful, whispering about the young man who had single-handedly turned the tide of the battle. He could feel the weight of their gazes on him, their expectations both of the village and of himself. Despite the victory, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness inside. There was always something more to be done, always a new threat on the horizon. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, he found solace in the quiet presence of someone who had always believed in him, Hinata. He hadn't noticed it before, but after everything they had been through together, something had changed. It wasn't just about fighting or protecting Konoha anymore, it was about the people who mattered. And Hinata, she had always been there. Hinata's confession. As the day's final light faded into the night, Naruto stood at the village gates, lost in his thoughts. He hadn't expected anyone to approach him, but the soft, tentative footsteps reached his ears before he had a chance to turn. When he glanced over his shoulder, his heart skipped a beat. Hinata stood there, her eyes downcast but her face set with determination. Her usual shyness was nowhere to be found, In its place was the quiet strength he had seen flicker within her during the battle. She stepped forward slowly, almost as if she were preparing for something significant, something life-changing. "Naruto," she began, her voice trembling but clear, I want to say something." Naruto, taken aback, tilted his head in curiosity. "What's up, Hinata?" She took a deep breath, her lavender eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity. "I've always admired you," she continued, each word more powerful than the last. "Your strength, your determination, the way you never give up, no matter how hard things get. I've always wanted to be strong like you. But I also know that I've been afraid to say this before. To admit it." She paused, her fingers trembling slightly at her sides. Naruto's heart thudded in his chest. There was something in her eyes now of vulnerability that disarmed him completely. He was no longer the hero she admired from a distance, he was something more. Something real. "Hinata," Naruto said softly, but she continued, her words coming in a rush. "I love you, Naruto. I always have," she said, her voice gaining confidence with every syllable. "You've given me the strength to believe in myself, and I want to fight by your side. Not as someone who admires you from afar, but as someone who stands with you. Always." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Naruto's mind was reeling, overwhelmed by the confession. His usual sharp, carefree demeanor faltered, and he took a hesitant step toward her. He had never been good at expressing his emotions, but there was something undeniable in his heart now. "Hinata," Naruto began, his throat dry, I don't know what to say. But I'll protect you. I promise I'll always protect you, no matter what." Hinata's face flushed at his words, but she smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know," she whispered. In that moment, Naruto realized just how much she had come to mean to him. It wasn't just her admiration or loyalty, it was something deeper, something that had always been there, quietly growing in the background. Now, it was undeniable. A new path. As Hinata left him to return to her duties, Naruto stood still, the weight of her confession pressing down on him. It wasn't just the bond they shared now, it was the future he had promised to fight for her, and for Kanata. He clenched his fists, the memory of the world resonating deep within him. He couldn't keep using the stand without fully mastering it. The power was too great to control without the discipline to match. And if he wanted to protect Hinata, Kanata, and everyone he cared about, he had to be more than just a fighter. He needed to become something more. "I'll do it," he muttered to himself. "I'll master the world. For them. For Hinata." With a renewed sense of purpose, Naruto turned and headed toward the training grounds. There was no more room for hesitation. His path was clear. Training together. The next few weeks were a blur of intense training. Naruto and Hinata pushed themselves beyond their limits, combining their strengths to create tactics that no enemy could counter. Hinata, always the more disciplined of the two, helped Naruto focus on the finer points of his abilities, guiding him as he learned to synchronize with the world more fluidly. Hinata's Bikudan and gentle fist techniques worked seamlessly with Naruto's stand powers. The world's time-stop ability gave them an edge no other team could match. By freezing time, Naruto could predict and outmaneuver any opponent's attacks, while Hinata used her Bikudan to pinpoint chakra points with perfect precision. Their strikes were like a dance, graceful, synchronized, and overwhelmingly effective. They were unstoppable. As they sparred, Naruto saw Hinata's confidence grow. No longer the shy, reserved girl he had once known, she had blossomed into someone who could stand tall beside him, someone who had her own strength to offer. And as their partnership solidified, so did their bond. They were no longer just comrades or teammates, they were something more. Their connection was undeniable, forged in the heat of battle and tempered by their shared dreams and struggles. Growing reputation. As Naruto's skills continued to improve, so did his reputation. Word of his abilities spread far and wide, and soon, other shinobi took notice. Some saw him as a potential ally, others as a growing threat. Among those who took a keen interest in him were the members of the Akatsuki. Their leader, pain-driven and obsessed with the idea of bringing about a new world, had heard whispers of a young shinobi with power unlike any other. Naruto's abilities, especially his mastery over time itself, were enough to draw the attention of the organization that had long sought to collect the tailed beasts. It didn't take long before members of the Akatsuki began sending covered messages, testing Naruto's resolve, hoping to sway him to their cause. But Naruto wasn't easily swayed. He had his own reasons for fighting, and he would not let anyone use him for their own purposes. In particular, it was Itachi Uchiha, the cold and calculating member of the Akatsuki, who began observing Naruto from afar. Itachi recognized the potential danger of someone wielding such godlike power, someone who could manipulate time itself. Itachi had his own plans, and it seemed that Naruto would soon become an obstacle to those plans. For now, though, Naruto was focused on his immediate goal, protecting Hinata and Konoha. The Akatsuki could wait. He knew that his greatest battle was still to come, and when it came, he would be ready. New allies, new threats. As Naruto's reputation grew, so too did his list of allies. Old friends like Sasuke and Sakura began to see him in a new light, no longer just a loudmouth and a troublemaker. They began to understand the depth of his resolve, his commitment to protecting those he loved. Sasuke, in particular, could no longer deny Naruto's strength, and although their rivalry remained, there was a grudging respect between them. Even some of the village's more senior shinobi began to see Naruto as a force to be reckoned with. His power was undeniable, and many started to turn to him for guidance in matters of strategy and tactics. However, this new role came with its own set of challenges. With greater power came greater responsibility, and Naruto knew that he couldn't afford to fail. But even as allies came forward, so too did new threats. The Akatsuki's eyes were set on him, and there were whispers of other dark forces stirring in the shadows. Naruto could feel the weight of the impending storm. And he was ready. The village of Konoha had always prided itself on its strength, its Hokage, and its shinobi. But as the world changed, so too did the threats that loomed on the horizon. Word of Naruto Uzumaki's unprecedented power had spread far beyond the Hidden Leaf, drawing the attention of the Akatsuki, a group of rogue ninja with their own sinister goals. The Akatsuki was a shadowy organization, its members infamous for their strength, and its mission gathering all of the tailed beasts was something that had already led to countless tragedies. But now, they had set their eyes on a new prize, the world. The Akatsuki had always sought power, and the world represented the ultimate weapon. Time manipulation, invincibility, and unimaginable speed all at the fingertips of a single shinobi. They knew that if they could control Naruto, they could reshape the world. For them, capturing Naruto and forcing him to join their ranks was no longer a matter of necessity, but of ambition. Itachi Uchiha, cold and calculating, had long been observing Naruto, noting his incredible potential. Alongside him was Kisame Hashidaki, his ever-loyal partner, both skilled and dangerous in their own right. Together, they were tasked with bringing Naruto in alive, if possible, and by any means necessary. The tension in Konoha was palpable. Naruto could feel it, even as he tried to maintain some semblance of normality. He knew what was coming. The Akatsuki wouldn't rest until they had what they wanted. The fact that his abilities were so dangerous made him a target, and every passing day seemed to bring him closer to a confrontation that could change everything. Naruto spent long nights in the training fields, pushing himself harder than ever before. His bond with Hinata had always strengthened with time, and her presence beside him during his most challenging moments gave him the strength to keep going. Hinata, too, was preparing herself for the battle ahead. She trained relentlessly, refining her gentle fist techniques and learning to work even more seamlessly with Naruto's powers. Their combined abilities, her Bikugan, his time stop, and their growing synchronization made them a duel that no enemy could easily overcome. But Naruto knew that the Akatsuki were unlike any enemies they had faced before. They would not hesitate to use everything at their disposal to subdue him. Still, with the strength of his stand and the bond he shared with Hinata, Naruto was determined to protect the village, no matter the cost. The hunt begins. It wasn't long before the Akatsuki made their move. The first sign that something was amiss came in the form of a chilling wind. Naruto was with Hinata on a training mission when a distant, familiar chakra signature flared in the air, a dark presence, unmistakable and foreboding. "I feel it," Naruto murmured, his eyes narrowing as he stared toward the horizon. "They are here." Hinata looked up at him, her eyes steady. "We'll be ready, Naruto." They didn't need to say more. Both knew that this battle wouldn't be like the others. This was the Akatsuki, an organization that had crushed entire villages and had taken down some of the strongest shinobi in history. But Naruto wasn't just a strong shinobi anymore, he was something more. Something beyond human comprehension. And with Hinata by his side, there was no enemy they couldn't defeat. As they made their way toward the village's borders, they were met by a sinister duo, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hashidaki, their cloaks billowing behind them as they stepped out from the shadows of the forest. Itachi's eyes, the Sharingan active, were cold and calculating, while Kisame's towering figure and menacing smile made it clear he was ready for a fight. "Uzumaki Naruto," Itachi said, his voice as cold as ever. "You've become quite the problem. The Akatsuki requires your power." Naruto clenched his fists, feeling the familiar surge of energy coursing through him. The world resonated inside him, responding to the threat before him. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice low and filled with defiance. Hinata stood beside him, her Byakugan activated and ready to defend. "If you think you can take him," she said, her words calm but firm, "you'll have to go through me first." The two Akatsuki members chuckled. "You're both foolish," Kisame grinned, lifting his sword, Sanhata. "But we'll see just how strong you really are." Unstoppable duo. The battle began with a rush of power. Itachi's Sharingan flickered with deadly intent as he and Kisame lunged forward, intent on overpowering Naruto and Hinata. But Naruto was ready. The world activated with a thought, and time froze. In an instant, everything around him came to a standstill. He moved effortlessly, steadying around the frozen forms of Itachi and Kisame, his eyes locked on their every movement. He could see their chakra signatures, their attacks frozen in midair. With a flick of his wrist, Naruto sent a barrage of punches and kicks into Kisame's frozen form, sending the massive men crashing to the ground. Hinata's gentle fist techniques, enhanced by the time stop, allowed her to pinpoint and strike at Itachi's chakra points without hesitation. Though Itachi's Sharingan could see through illusions, even his perception couldn't handle the overwhelming speed and precision of Hinata's strikes when time was frozen. For a moment, it seemed like victory was within their grasp. But Itachi's expression didn't change. His eyes, though still locked in place, were calculating, studying Naruto's movements. When time resumed, Naruto and Hinata were ready. But Itachi had already predicted their moves. In a flash, he activated his Amaterasu, the black flames that consumed everything in their path. Naruto barely had time to react, but with the world's time stop, he was able to freeze the flames in place, preventing them from reaching him. "Is that all you have, Itachi?" Naruto said, his voice dripping with confidence. "I've fought through worse." Hinata, her Byakugan still active, scanned the battlefield with precision. She could see the intricate web of chakra that surrounded them, ready to guide Naruto through every movement. "We're not done yet." The battle raged on, with Naruto and Hinata working in perfect unison, their bond and teamwork proving to be an unstoppable force. No matter how powerful the Akatsuki were, they had never faced an enemy like this. A warrior who could freeze time, and a partner whose skills were honed to perfection. But the battle was far from over. The Akatsuki would not back down so easily, and Naruto knew this was only the beginning of a much greater conflict. However, with Hinata by his side, he was more than ready to face whatever came next. The world had grown quiet in the aftermath of the battle. The air was thick with the weight of impending destruction, and the only sound that filled the atmosphere was the rush of wind and the quiet hum of chakra. Naruto and Hinata stood together, side by side, in the heart of the battlefield. They had already fought through the ranks of the Akatsuki, but the real challenge was now before them. The final confrontation. Itaki Uchiha and Kisame Hashidaki had been only the beginning. Now, the rest of the Akatsuki members were closing in. As the battle had dragged on, Naruto had come to understand something crucial. The true power of his stand, the world, was not simply in its ability to stop time. It was in how he used it, how he adapted to the battlefield and anticipated every move. His powers had grown, and now, more than ever, they had a purpose. Hinata stood tall beside him, her Bikudan active, scanning the battlefield for any potential threats. The bond between them was more than just a partnership. It was a connection that allowed them to communicate without words, a bond forged through countless battles, trust, and unspoken understanding. They were unstoppable together. Naruto's gaze hardened. "Let's end this," he muttered, more to himself than to Hinata. Hinata nodded, her expression determined. "We're ready." As they stood there, preparing for the next wave of Akatsuki members, the shadows shifted. As sudden presence loomed in the distance, a figure cloaked in red and black. Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki, appeared, flanked by his loyal subordinates, Konan and the remaining members of the organization. Their eyes glinted with deadly purpose, and their stance was one of utter confidence. "You two are more than just a nuisance," Pain spoke, his voice cold and commanding. "But now, your time has come to an end." Naruto clenched his fists, the familiar presence of the world coursing through him. He could feel the power surging within him, and the world seemed to slow as he activated the stand, freezing time. The battlefield around him stopped, frozen in place. For a brief moment, it was just Naruto and Hinata, standing in a world where everything had paused. They were the only ones moving. With a thought, Naruto accelerated, his movements fast and calculated. He was already at Pain's side before the leader could react, his fist slamming into the man's chest with a force that would have obliterated any ordinary shinobi. But Pain was no ordinary shinobi. His body absorbed the blow with an eerie resilience, his eyes narrowing as he assessed Naruto's power. "You are dangerous, Naruto Uzumaki," Pain said, his voice filled with a mix of admiration and disdain. "But no matter how strong you are, you will fall like all those before you." Hinata, moving swiftly beside Naruto, activated her gentle fist. In this frozen world, she targeted Pain's chakra points with precision, striking where the enemy's defenses were weakest. Each movement she made was a deadly dance, and with every strike, she disrupted Pain's flow of chakra, weakening him with each passing second. But despite their best efforts, Pain was still standing. He was not without power, and his 6 bodies, each one a unique reflection of his vast strength, began to stir once more. Time resumed, and the battle truly began. Pain's 6 bodies attacked with deadly synchronicity. Each one wielded a different ability, and Naruto quickly realized that even with the world at his side, it would not be enough to defeat them all at once. It was then that he understood the true scope of Pain's power. The leader was not just strong physically, he was a master of strategy and deception. The first body launched an attack with Shibuka Tensei, a technique that could create a gravitational field so intense that it pulled everything in its vicinity toward a single point. Naruto used the world to stop time, but he could still feel the gravitational pull. With a grimace, he leapt into action, dodging the technique and landing next to Hinata. "They are all connected," Naruto said, his eyes sharpening as he observed the 6 bodies. "We'll have to take them down one by one." Hinata nodded. "I'll cover you. We can do this together." Naruto, drawing on the full power of the world, launched himself at Pain's remaining bodies. His movements were a blur, stopping time again and again to move faster than any of the 6 could anticipate. In those moments of frozen time, Naruto saw the flaw in Pain's plan. Each body had its own strength, but they were still linked to one another, and the longer they were apart, the more vulnerable they became. One by one, Naruto took them down, using his mastery of the world to disorient and dismantle Pain's strategy. Hinata's precise strikes combined with his time-stopping abilities formed a deadly combination. But even as the final body of Pain crumbled, Naruto knew that the battle wasn't over. The leader himself had yet to unleash his full power. The cost of victory. Pain, watching his bodies fall, didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed, and a deep, almost sorrowful expression crossed his face. You've won, Naruto Uzumaki. But victory comes at a cost. Naruto, panting heavily from the effort, clenched his fists. I'm not finished yet. Pain's body began to glow, a strange energy emanating from him as he activated his Rin-Egan. The very landscape around them began to wart and shift, and for a moment, it felt as though the world itself was bending to Pain's will. We are not so different, you and I, Pain said, his voice low and filled with quiet conviction. We both seek to change this broken world. But in the end, all our power will amount to nothing. People will die, and a cycle of pain will never end. Naruto shook his head, his voice filled with resolve. Maybe you're right. Maybe the world is broken. But I'll protect the people I care about. That's all that matters. And that's why I'll never stop fighting. In that instant, Naruto unleashed everything he had time stopped, and the world froze around him. He pushed himself beyond his limits, faster than ever before, moving through the frozen chaos with the intent to end the fight once and for all. As time resumed, Naruto's final strike hit Pain with an immense force. The impact sent shockwaves through the battlefield, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Pain's body crumbled, his will broken by the unyielding determination of Naruto and Hinata. It was over. Naruto and Hinata stood in the aftermath, their bodies bruised and exhausted, but victorious. The Akatsuki had been defeated, and Konoha was safe once again. The weight of the battle had not been lost on either of them, but in that moment, they both knew that their bond was unbreakable. They had fought side by side and emerged stronger than they ever could have imagined. Naruto turned to Hinata, his expression softening as he looked into her eyes. We did it, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Hinata, her breathing shallow from the battle, smiled softly at him. Together. And in that moment, Naruto knew that no matter the trials ahead, they would always stand side by side, stronger than ever.